This meeting is being recorded.
Chair, we're getting an awful lot of feedback here on WebEx from the chamber.
Okay, members, well, make a wee start. We'll just check WebEx. John, for you to see that you're getting no feedback now. There's no mics on in the chamber, so is that better now, John?
It's coming from over Ireland, Paul. I can hear them chatting. They must have a computer logged on or something.
Nobody's logged in on their device, are they? All right, well, we'll make a start, folks, and hopefully it'll be all right. It'll clear maybe. We'll welcome you to the Regeneration Community Committee tonight, the 14th of February, in the Grange Oma and via WebEx. You're all very welcome. And we look forward to getting through the business tonight. So maybe some members are looking home to bring home some flowers or chocolates. So there we go. Maybe I'm not long married enough yet, but there we go. Members, we'll go to the agenda. If any apologies tonight, please. Tommy.
Kindly thank you, Chair. Only one I can see at the minute, that's Councillor Anthony Feely.
Okay, thank you. Victor.
No apologies as such. Councillor Irvine will be late in, and Councillor Armstrong will be late in, and that's all I have, Chair.
Okay,
Thank you.
Is Councillor Garrity on the call, is she? What Paul, Councillor Robertson, or Councillor Coyle's in the chamber, sorry. Paul?
Oh, apologies from the DUP.
Okay. And Councillor Coyle, are you aware of any from the SDLP?
Yeah, they're very romantic.
Oh, right.
Councillor Garrity and Councillor Gannon, please, apologies.
Thank you.
McPhillips and Blake are on.
Okay. Okay, I don't see any. Is there any more apologies anyone's aware of from anyone else? Okay. Thank you, members, for that. We'll move on to sign the minutes and confidential minutes of the previous meeting. It was held on the 17th of January. We've got them minutes signed. And declarations of interest now, item number 3. Is there any declarations of interest tonight? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. Declarations of interest, 5.2 as a member of the Event Strategy Working Group, 8.1 as a member of the Planning Committee as a PAN.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Point 1, planning.
Okay, Councillor John Coyle.
8-1 Chair as member of the Planning Committee.
Thank you. And Councillor Alan Rainey.
8-1, Chair, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Josephine Deehan.
Good evening, Chair and members, and thank you. I would like to make a declaration of interest, Chair, in 5.1, the Private Tenancies Act 2022, as the owner of a HMO. Won't be participating in that debate, Chair, or taking part in the vote. And secondly, Chair, 8.1, the proposal of application notice, the PAN, as a member of the Planning Committee. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor McElduff.
Okay, 8.1 Planning Committee.
Okay, and Councillor Stephen Donnelly.
9.5 Education Authority.
Thank you. Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Chair. 8.1 Planning Committee.
And Councillor McPhillips.
Thank you, Chair. Item 5.2 Event Strategy Working Group. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, that's all the declarations. Councillor Deehan, do you want on at this point, just very briefly there, for your item?
Yes, thank you so much, Chair, and I appreciate you're giving me the opportunity to raise this matter. Members will be aware that on Sunday past, Oma CBS were victorious in the McCrory Cup. Now, Councillor McElduff can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that it has been 50 years almost since Oma CBS won this trophy. This is a very significant competition for Ulster colleges, and it's very keenly contested with a very high standard of football. And certainly the young men of Oma CBS did themselves, their families, their school and their community proud by their magnificent victory over Holy Trinity College. So I would greatly appreciate, Chair, if the Council Chairman, Councillor McElduff, would consider in due course and at a time of his choosing, liaising with the school, of course, of hosting a reception to honour this team and to congratulate them on their magnificent victory. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We'll take that as a proposal, sure. Councillor Deehan, thank you. And Councillor McElduff.
Yep. Chair, obviously very happy to progress that. On Monday morning, we made contact with Oma CBS to begin the process of actioning this, but it will await the outcome of their Hogan Cup run, because when you win the McCrory Cup, you're into the Hogan Cup semi-final. This is territory that St Michael's would understand too, but Oma CBS will now be facing Naas CBS in the Hogan Cup All-Ireland semi-final, so we'll await the outcome of that. Hopefully they progress there, but a McCrory Cup is of its own volition meritorious of recognition, absolutely. It isn't as far back as 50 years that Oma CBS, I think they might have won it twice since the 2000 mark, you know, but it might be 15 or 17 years since it was last won by Oma CBS. And I too would like to congratulate Principal Mr. McConnell and also the manager, Jeremy McNulty, and his fellow management team members, and young Owen McElhome, the captain, and all of the players. I was there myself, obviously, on Sunday, and had the great privilege to have represented the school in the McCrory Cup in my day. That was 1984. And we didn't win it. We thought we were good, but St. Pat's Mahara were the kingpins of the day. Now, there will be a chair's reception at the end of the Hogan Cup run, no doubt about that, and we're actioning it already. And then secondly, we'll also be doing the same in respect of Dean McGurk College, Carrickmore, who won the Markey Cup, which is an Ulster competition as well. It was played out last week, 5 days earlier, in Rosslea. That was where the final took place. And Mr. Warnock, we're in touch with Mr. Warnock, the principal there as well. And just to acknowledge that since the 2 victories, I have been contacted by Councillor Deehan and Councillor Podrigan Kelly. So these are things that are in hand, and we're really, really proud. Now, equally, if any other councillor is able to help us identify a hockey victory of such magnitude or a rugby victory of such magnitude, we're very willing to look at that as well, of course, you know, but these are the standout ones. And also maybe just to add my congratulations to St. Joseph's Donaghmore, outside our council area, but from Tyrone, who won the McLaren Cup as well last week. So in 5 days, and I want for many people to take note, you know, Tyrone, 3 Tyrone schools excelled at the highest level, and that's a signal of intent for the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Stephen Donnelly.
No, thank you, Chair. I mean, I think it's been absolutely overwhelming to see the scale of the joy and the pride that has been felt within the Oma area, and indeed right across Tyrone at the victory of Oma CBS. And I have to tell you, I mean, it feels like every day now you're bumping into aunts, uncles, grandparents, and parents who just are absolutely overjoyed just at the fact that they've been able to pull this off. So certainly I want to pay tribute to the team, to the school community, because there's a huge amount of work that goes into achievements of this nature, and they've done themselves proud, they've done their school proud, and they've done their community proud. So just want to put that on record, Chair.
Okay. And Councillor Anne-Marie Fitzgerald on WebEx.
Yes, Chair. Thanks very much for letting me in there. Just the same as everybody else. Wow, what success did we have in Tyrone? And I want to declare an interest. I'm Chair of the Dean School in Carrickmore, and outstanding achievement. They have 2 trophies, a junior one and a senior one now within the school, and absolutely amazing. Credit to the teachers, credit to the fellows who's went forward in the team and on the supporters. And indeed, we have a girls' final coming up now very shortly as well. So hopefully that the girls will get through into that, and we'll have a celebration and a load of good Tyrone footballers coming through there at the minute. So as chair of the Dean School, just want to wish everybody all the best. And of course, CBS School locally, we have a few fellas from Lochmacrory playing in that as well. So great skill all round.
Thank you for that, Anne-Marie. Stephen, are you happy to second just to tidy that up first? You were in there on that, so happy to second. Thank you. And Councillor McAleer.
Yeah, Chair, I'll not take up too long here, just to pass on my congratulations to the CBS as a former pupil and to obviously the Dean within my own DA on the remarkable success that both schools have had in the past week or so. So congratulations to them both.
No problem, thank you. And on WebEx, Councillor Podrigan Kelly.
Thanks, Chair. Just checking, can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Again, just want to lend my congratulations to both, and possibly declare an interest as a teacher of Dean College, but a very, very proud one at that, including 2 of my own club mates and the very special captain of Michael Rafferty. And again to the brothers team, captained by my own club mate, Michael. And I suppose we can't forget about the 2 Carrickmore contingent, particularly the Sweeneys and the McNallys, on their part in the St Joseph's Donegal team. So a brilliant weekend all round for Tyrone schools and for Tyrone football. So thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Catherine Kelly.
Well, thanks, Chair, for letting me in. Just very briefly, just to share the happiness about the successes of our local GAA teams in our schools. In particular, I want to congratulate the students of the Dean, the Carrickmore School, and to all the students from all over the area that did us all so proud. So sharing in the congratulations that have been expressed already. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, members, and we're all agreed on that. Okay. We'll move on to item 4 on your agenda as matters arising from the meeting on the 17th of January. Go through them: page 1, page 2, page 3. John Boyle.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, members, just in relation to on the top of page 3, the request that we write to the Education Authority requesting that can reconsider the provision of further facilities for hockey. You will see at agenda 9.52 of your agenda the response from the Education Authority, in which they say that it unfortunately remains the case that the Education Authority is not in a position, due to budgetary constraints, to provide additional hockey pitch facilities in the home area. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, members, that's the response from the Education Authority. We need a proposer and seconder to note. Councillor Thompson, happy to propose. Councillor McAleer.
Yeah, Chair, I'll second the note. I think given discussions we've had previously in relation to funding difficulties and the cuts being imposed on the EA, when they're looking at making cuts to the makeup of children's school meals, I think it's understandable, this response, although it's not a welcome one. So we'll continue to keep plugging away and see what we can do. But obviously, at this stage, it's just been something that's ruled out. So I'll second the note.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Barton.
Very much indeed, and I thank the EA for the response. But once again, it's a disappointing response that some thoughts have not been given to this extra hockey pitch. After all, it's a number of schools that will benefit from it, plus Omagh Hockey Club. So I think we should continue to write to them, perhaps in a few months' time again, to keep it on the agenda.
Okay, we'll take that as a proposal. Just on WebEx, members, if you could check your hands, or is anyone looking in on this item? I think so, maybe. Okay. Are we happy that it's noted, Councillor Barton, and we will deal with that? Well, Kim will keep it on file for the future. Is that okay? Do you need a seconder, or are we just happy to? Are you happy to second, Alan, sure, and we'll have that recorded. Okay. Thank you, members. That was page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, and 10, and page 11. Thank you, members, for that. We'll get on now to item 5, is the Community and Wellbeing Directorate reports. 5.1 is to consider a report on Private Tenancies Act, NI 2022, paper A. And that's with John. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Chair, the purpose of the report is to advise members on the changes in legislation in relation to the Private Tenancies Act, which was originally 2006. The report highlights that there are 3 main players, 3 main government agencies involved in the administration of private owned or rented sector. DFC, they developed the housing policy for Northern Ireland and reviewed the legislation, and are responsible for the administration of the landlord registration scheme. The NIHE are, as you all know, the largest social housing provider in Northern Ireland, and they are the statutory housing authority, and they work to tackle the wide range of housing related issues, but their role is primarily to provide social housing and develop housing policy and regulation. And ourselves and the councils have a legal obligation to take action to deal with public health nuisances in housing and to inspect and assess the fitness of houses for human habitation. At present, the housing standards for private rented houses in Northern Ireland is regulated under the Housing Northern Ireland Order 1992, which provides for a fitness standard, but that fitness standard only provides for basic standard of living accommodation. Another piece of legislation was the Private Tenancies Order 2006, which was enacted in order to reduce the inequities between the different types of tenure and to simplify the process for the private rented accommodation sector. And it targeted unfitness, disrepair, rent control, and give powers to councils in relation to enforcement. There have been a number of changes in relation to that order with the introduction of the Private Tenancies Act 2022, and the detail of those changes are outlined in Appendix 1 to the report. It is the first step in a series of legislative reforms to address some of the issues of the private rented sector, and just some of the things that the 2022 Act provides for is in relation to tenant to be given notice on certain matters, such as tenancy information notice within 28 days of granting tenancy, and also a notice of variation should the conditions of their tenancy change. The tenant must be provided with a rent receipt for payment of cash, which was never in legislation before. The limit on the tenancy deposit amount, whereby the new Act limits the amount of deposit that can be asked for or retained in connection with private tenancy to no more than equivalent of 1 month's rent. The Act increases the time limits for requirements in relation to tenancy deposits, and in relation to private tenancy deposits also, that there are certain offences in connection with those deposits to be continuing offences. And finally, the 2022 Act changes the length of notice to quit a tenancy, and those are highlighted in Appendix 1 of the report. I suppose the responsibility of council is to ensure that all of those are enforced, and there are fixed penalty payable in respect of an offence, which currently sits at £2,500, or 1/5 of 2,500, which is 500, and it is proposed that the new fines for the offences are set at that same level of £500 as detailed in Appendix 1. So therefore, Chair, it's recommended that the Council approves the report on the changes to the Private Tenancies Act 2022, including the proposed introduction of the fixed penalties associated with that at a level of £500.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Okay, nobody in the chamber. Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm happy to note this, but I would like to propose that we significantly strengthen our submission here. While the submission and these recommendations go some direction, I guess, in terms of addressing the precarious state a lot of tenants are currently living in. We are in an unprecedented cost of living crisis. And it has to be said that the recommendations coming forward from Stormont are really woefully inadequate to address the situation. And they're so bad that they're actually paling in comparison to what the Tories are bringing in currently in a white paper, the Renters Reform Bill in England. And I would like to see us at least make the case for legislation to protect tenants in Northern Ireland to at least match that in place already in Scotland and in Wales. In Scotland, no-fault evictions are banned and have been since 2017. In Wales, no-fault eviction periods were extended to 6 months last year. And I would like to see I would like to propose that we strengthen this to include a ban on no-fault evictions, and also to say that there should be it should be illegal to have a blanket ban on benefit claimants or families with children, and also that tenants should be allowed to apply to bring pets in, because a lot of people can't even have pets these days as a tenant. So subject to those amendments, I would like to propose that we make that our submission and that the policy of this council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Will I bring in another councillor? No, just at this point, John. Okay.
Chair, just to say that we're not making a submission at this point, but certainly we can write to the department in relation to the issues that Councillor O'Coffey has raised. This is not a consultation document. It is about the legislation being enacted itself. So if we wish to, we can write to the department in relation to those points.
Yes, with those items raised. Okay, Councillor McElduff. All right.
John, about implications for a landlord if they come to the attention of the council regularly, for being a bad landlord, for not providing adequate heating, for example, for a tenant. The way, if we're aware of such an example, we might pass that to environmental health in the hope of resolving the tenant's problems if the landlord's not listening. But beyond that, say there's a short-term repair of the heating system, does that have negative implications for the landlord in a re-registration process? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Chair, I suppose firstly, failure to comply with the legislation, as I pointed out, will impose a penalty or a possible penalty of up to £500 of enforcement. Secondly, if it is a continual offence, those can be brought to the attention of the Department for Communities for the registration process, as is highlighted in, and it will be up to the department to decide whether those are sufficient in order for registration not to take place in the future. But those are conversations between environmental health and the department themselves.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McAleer.
Yeah, Chair, again, reading it, it's another one of these bits of legislation and acts that's been brought in to, again, put additional duties at the foot of council. But when it comes to actually reclaiming funding or resources for it, there seems to be a lack of it contained therein. I do think on the overall reading of it, it does look like a fairly positive bit of legislation in the fact that it is adding additional or giving additional protection to renters. But I do think the point that Councillor O'Coffey raises is a good one and a useful one, and I would be happy enough to second his proposal that we do, if we make representation to that effect, that is something that's looked at as is the case in both Wales and Scotland. So I'm happy enough to second that proposal, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Maguire.
Margaret Carley, just on the point and the proposal of Councillor O'Coffey and Michael Ear, Councillor Michael Ear, would it be better to maybe phrase it as a question to ask was those items considered in the formation of these adjustments? Because I'd be surprised if those ideas weren't already muted and they've gone through some sort of process. And certainly it probably could do with further lobbying down the line if those things, if we couldn't get a satisfactory answer. Just that's the way I would frame it. But again, happy enough with the proposal to go ahead.
Just go away inquire on that in the response. John, is that okay? Members, we've heard that report proposed and seconded, and also that additional from Councillor McAleer and Councillor O'Coffey. Are we all agreed? Councillor John Coyle.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Just can I ask John about the resourcing of this? What way it has come from DFC? What will be the resourcing through the council? Have they said anything about costs to implement this? You know, it is good for to see that it's coming forward, but though it has been sent on high down to the council, and is there a resource implication to Fermanagh and Omagh and the other 10 councils?
Chair, there is no additional financial support available for the introduction of this. I suppose we are already responsible for enforcement to a certain extent, and this just extends that level of enforcement in order to comply with the new legislation. I suppose the outworkings of it as to what it actually entails will be proof when it is actually on the ground, like, you know, in enforcement. But just to point out that as is in section 3.1 of the report, there is no financial support available for DFC in relation to the enforcement, and it is hoped that the penalty of £500 will help in defray extra costs in relation to any enforcement that does entail. But certainly there's no doubt that the introduction of any of this legislation has an impact on staffing, on the ability of staff, and especially I suppose if we take into account the financial climate in which we're in. All staff are already stretched, so it is the availability of staff in order to comply with the legislation and the extra workload that may be involved in it.
Okay, thank you for that, John. Okay, members all agreed with that. Thank you. Move on to item 5.2 on your agenda, is to consider report on events and festivals 23-24, paper B. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, there's 3 elements to the report, Chair. One is to provide members with an update on the event strategy working group meeting, which was held on the 2nd of February. As part of that is to seek approval to deliver the Fermanagh Angling Classic Festival in May of this year at an estimated cost of £13,000. And related to that also is to seek approval for third-party delivered angling events associated with the Classic Festival at a cost of £2,450. The draft minutes of the event strategy working group are included at Appendix 1. And just in relation to some of the items that were discussed was in relation to St. Patrick's Day and an update on the events that are taking part as part of St. Patrick's Day in relation to Project St. Patrick here in Enniskillen and in the St. Patrick's Day Festival in Omagh, which has been led by Dunulla. Also, there was an update on the community Christmas funding and an update on Fermanagh for 2022, and it was decided at the meeting that a further report would be taken to the event strategy working group in relation to the holding of the Fermanagh event at the March meeting. The angling events, as I've said, permission is sought at this meeting to deliver the Classic angling competition in May at a cost of £13,000. And there are actually very important events which are held the week before and the week after the Classic in support of the Classic competition on the Éireann system. Just to point out that last year, the Classic, there were 167 anglers at the event. Most of those from outside of the district, a lot of them who stayed in the district and spent monies here in the district. Most of them certainly stayed, or all of them would have stayed for the 5 nights of the Classic competition, but also the shoulder events of that competition. Many of the anglers actually stayed up to 10 and sometimes in some cases 20 days in the Fermanagh area as part of the angling event. If we take account of that and assuming that approximately maybe 80% of them stayed in the area, and if we use very conservative figures from Tourism NI, the latest figures from 2019, that they spend on average £62 per person just for the anglers themselves, that would have brought into the economy somewhere in the region of 83,000 into the local economy from the investment of 13,000 which we did. Now that is very conservative because it is well known that anglers actually spend more than the normal tourists that come to the area. So I suppose for a return on investment, it is actually a good return. There was also a discussion in relation to the council-led events and festivals for the 2023 year, given the reduction in budget. And again, this will be further discussed at the June 2023 event strategy working group following the council's AGM. And finally, just to point out in relation to the event strategy working group minutes, that the coronation, the King's coronation, was discussed, and again, a further report will be brought before the event strategy working group in March 2023, which will be for members' consideration at a future RNC meeting. So therefore, Chair, it's recommended that the Council notes the draft minutes and actions of the event strategy working group, approves the delivery of the Classic Angling Festival in May 23 at an estimated cost of 13,000, and approves support to third-party delivered angling events associated with the Classic Angling Festival at a total cost of 2,450.
Thank you, John. There's 3 recommendations there, members. We're looking for a proposer. Councillor John Coyle.
Thank you, Chair. I'd be happy to propose the 3 recommendations in this. I know that the Classic Angling Festival is a great draw, and it does bring huge benefits to the district. And there is many spin-offs, as John has said, to the Classic, and that they do stay longer. So I'm happy to see that the council is promoting and being involved in this very good initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Lear.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, again, like it's another positive report coming back, and I think it's something that we do need to promote. We're promoting tourism, and we're promoting, I suppose, the scenic beauty and the clean waterways that we do have around here, or the hopefully clean waterways that we do have around here. I have a couple of questions, and I'm presuming that when we're talking about third-party angling events, it's just ones that aren't where the council isn't the main sponsor. And a note just in relation to item 6 on the working group minutes, that the question was asked if female angling groups were involved, and obviously that's something that is to be welcomed and encouraged where possible. I'm wondering if there's any indication of any disabled angling groups being invited or being referenced, and if possible, maybe that could be an avenue that we look to working with in future. And the final point was just in relation to, I know again it's another one that's been discussed previously in council, and again just given the time of year, the possibility, and this one I suppose Councillor Swift, if she had been here, would have been interested in, the idea of marking St. Bridget as a patron saint and the female patron saint of the island. Would there be a potential there that maybe in more financially accommodating times, that would be something we could look to celebrate as a council going forward? And I know that St. Bridget would have links with County Fermanagh as well there. So maybe that's something to keep an eye on going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Alan Rennick.
Well, I'm just happy to support the proposal, Chair. It did get intensive scrutiny at the meeting. Happy to support it.
I'll take that as a second, just Alan, is that all right? Okay. Oh, sorry, Councillor McAleer, second. Sorry, Kim. That's okay. Thank you. Okay.
Chair, just to
John,
come back
did you want
maybe,
in on that?
yeah, just to come back maybe on some of the points that were raised by Councillor McAleer. Yes, the third party, the 2450, is in relation to events which are not council led, and the main classic event is council led. In relation to disabled angling events, most of our fishing stands are disabled friendly, and we do actually have a number of participants in the classic who are disabled and make use of those. I suppose the great thing about angling is that it is open to everyone. So it is whether able-bodied or disabled. And we do very much promote the use of the fishing stands and angling for the disabled people. And certainly, yes, in the future, I suppose we can certainly look at celebrating St. Bridget's day-to-day, as Councillor McAleer points out, in more financially accommodating times, yes.
Thank you, John. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, John, for the report and for the added information about envisaged spend. And certainly this is a vote of confidence in angling in the district. My question is whether we do seek feedback from the anglers at the events. Feedback would be interesting to see how they where they define the quality of fishing, and also maybe wider on the district itself, how it is providing what they need in terms of recreation. I think that I'm not sure that we do a feedback exercise, but I think that would be a good way to communicate with the fishermen and also hopefully encourage them to keep coming. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. John,
Yeah.
can we do some feedback on?
Yeah, Chair, in relation to feedback, it's something actually probably in relation to the classic that we're quite good at, in that the daily interaction with the anglers who attend the classic is actually very, very proactive from council officials. And every year we get an indication of how good the fishing is and about their likely return and things like that. I suppose the proof of the event itself is in the large number of anglers who actually return year on year from across Europe to come to the classic, and we are talking about people from Germany, from the Netherlands, and large contingents from the rest of the UK. Maybe it isn't something that we do formally in terms of a questionnaire, but it is something that we always take account of, especially in relation to the fishing pegs and where they're located on the system and things like that, in order to try and improve the event year on year.
Okay, thank you for that update. Okay, members, that's agreed. Thank you for that. Move on to 5.3 now. This is to consider the report of the Director of Community and Wellbeing, paper C.
Thank you, Chair. There are four elements to the report. One is in relation to additional funding for advice services from the Department for Communities, where they've informed us of an extra £3,000 to be spent equally between Community Advice for Mana and Home Independent Advice Services. The second element is to seek approval to provide a letter of support to Ballinamore Area Community Council Limited to endorse an application for funding to the Shared Island Fund. Partners in the project, which involve a number of community organisations from the district, which is highlighted in section 2.2.3 of the report. They wish to develop the project, which they are all involved in with Ballinamore, to further develop that project to support a range of community wellbeing initiatives, including mental health first aid itself, and automated external defibrillator training. And it is to provide funding in order to support that application. The third element of the report is in relation to recognising support and achievement. I think it was the meeting I think it was December's RNC meeting where a number of where members asked for options in order to recognise sport and achievement in the future. The report here highlights that we had just in the period April to November 22, 66 sports bursaries. And we had quite a number of significant sporting achievements also for individual or teams who reach in a national or international final through competition. And there were 5 of those that were allocated in the 22-23 year. Of all of those, 13 teams and 3 individuals were recognised by Chairman's reception during that same period, April to November 2022. I suppose it is an indication, and maybe from the comments which were at the very start of the meeting, of the huge success and the level of success at which individuals and teams within our district are achieving, both at national and international level. And I suppose it is increasing, and it is very much to be welcomed by the council. But I suppose in how we recognise those from a council point of view, both with regard to the time and the resources that is taken in order to recognise. There are 4 options which have been considered as the report in the report here. One is to continue the delivery of the chairman's receptions on an ad hoc basis for individuals, to provide an annual chairman's reception recognising the recipients of the Significant Sporting Achievements Award only, because those are the people that have actually achieved through competition and have won their way effectively through national or international finals. And the 4th option, which is actually the option which officers have suggested may be the most appropriate, is a quarterly chairman's reception for all recipients of both the Sports Bursary Awards and the Significant Sporting Achievements on a rotational basis between Omagh and Enniskillen. And therefore, in doing so, we recognise all of those recipients, but it's just not as much on an ad hoc basis, but it is done on a one night in either the Grange or here or in the Town Hall in Enniskillen. The 4th element and final element of the report is the Irish translation of signage at Enniskillen Workhouse. This was requested at the Environmental Services Committee. And just to highlight to members that during the completion of the Public Realm Scheme and the renovation of the workhouse, advice was sought from an independent Irish translator in relation to the appropriate translation of the term workhouse. And at that time, and discussions did take place with the independent translator, both the term Chuck Obre and Chuck Namacht were actually discussed, and it was agreed with the Irish translator that the term Chuck Obre would be used for the development. And it is recommended that the council, because we have the signage in place, that the council retains the Chuck Obre as the term for the workhouse. If we weren't, there are a number of signs in the town of Enniskillen. Finger post signs. There's the sign outside of the workhouse itself, and there are a number of information panels within the workhouse which use the term Chuck Obre. And if we were to decide otherwise, all of those would be changed. It would have to be changed, and it would be at a cost of approximately £1,800. So therefore, Chair, in relation to the recommendations, it's recommended that the Council approves the additional allocation of £1,500 for both the advice services in the district, that it approves the letter of support to Ballinamore Area Community Council for the Better Together project to accompany their application to the Shared Island Fund, approves option 4 to recognise sport and achievement in that it would be on the basis of a quarterly chairman's reception, and finally approves the retention of the term Chuck Obre for the workhouse in Enniskillen.
Thank you, John, for that. Councillor Errol Thompson.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks to Director John Boyle for his report. I want to concentrate on recommendations, or Part 1 and Part 3. I want to formally propose recommendation of the Part 1 to do with the £1,500 to both Community Advice for Fermanagh and Omagh Independent Advice Services through the Community Support Programme to assist in meeting increased running costs for both these organisations. these organisations do some really good work across this district, and especially at this time that we're living through, with cost of living and everything else, they're vital services in this district. So I am happy to propose recommendation part 1, and just with regard to the sports bursary and the recognition. I know I was part of, as chairman last year, I was part of hosting receptions for many of those individuals and teams. So I'm happy to propose recommendation part 3 that approves option 4 to recognise a sporting achievement. That is, that all recipients of the sports bursary and the Significant Sporting Achievement Award will be invited to a quarterly chairman's reception. Thank you. Happy to propose those two, Chair.
Councillor Anne-Marie Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. Just following on from Councillor Thompson, I'm happy to second item 1 in the recommendations, but I want to come in terms of item 3 of the recommendations with a slight variation in what's being proposed. I certainly was one of the councillors here who suggested that there's a different way of looking at the sporting achievements, and we discussed this at a previous meeting. But I think, given the nature of the wide area that our district covers, I would be supportive of a quarterly chair's reception, but one in Fermanagh and one in Tyrone, because some of the people that will be coming to these receptions are coming from, you know, quite far away across the district, and I don't think it'd be fair to ask them to come, you know, if they're at the far end of Fermanagh, to come to Omagh, and similarly in the Omagh area. I think it's still reasonable. I think it's still considering the costs and so on involved, but I think you might get better uptake from the people that we're trying to recognise if we had a reception in each area quarterly. So I'd like to make that a proposal.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Anne-Marie. And Councillor Thompson, do you want to come back in on that?
Yeah, I'm happy to amend my proposal, going by Councillor Anne-Marie Donnelly's comments there. Happy to amend it that we have a reception in each part of the district, i.e. in Omagh and in Enniskillen.
Okay,
thank you, Chair.
Okay, members, that is 1 and 3 of the recommendations proposed and seconded. So we'll go to Councillor Maguire at this stage.
Good morning, Carly. Well, Chair, again, we're fragmenting these proposals, but again, I'm coming in on item 4, just in relation to the Chakobra translation for the workhouse. And whereas it is a literal translation of the term workhouse, generally in the idiom, like in Gaelic speakers would address a workhouse as a Chuck na Mucht. In fact, I done the classic Google search and I put in what is the Irish for workhouse, and it comes up quite clearly that the Irish for a workhouse is Chuck na Mucht. So I, again, given the costs, but I'm just giving fair warning that a lot of the Gaelic speaking traditionalists out there will possibly be looking for an adjustment to that saying now that it is due to be open to the public. We had a visit to it the other day. As councillors, it was very an enlightening tour, and thanks to Ms. Scott and all for her tour. It was very informative, and it does bring home the reality of life as it was in that poorhouse. Welcome also the addition of some bilingualism on the signs around the walls. Certainly welcome that, but slightly academic argument will persist, I believe, in the name Chakobra, because as I say, it's generally known as a Chuck na Mucht, the house of the poor, a poor house. But welcome the fact that there's the inclusion of bilingualism in the site, and leave it open there to our lobbyists outside the council maybe to seek adjustments in the future. But happy enough with that proposal as it is.
You're happy to propose that one that I
and possibly approve item 2 as well, Chair. Just for
take them too.
Correct. Yeah,
thank you.
Propose those, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. And on to Webbish, Councillor Deehan.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to John for his report. Chair, I want just to make a few comments on this item. First of all, the additional funding for the advice services. Obviously, I support this 100% and pay tribute to Community Advice Fermanagh and OMA Independent Advice Service for the excellent work that they do, and much needed. At this time, Chair, as you would be aware, with the cost of living crisis, I was just wondering, I welcome the £1,500, and I'm just wondering, could this not be more? I mean, it doesn't go very far when it comes to employing staff and putting in extra resources to help our people. But overall, I want to support that. I support the letter of support for Ballinamore. In terms of the recognition of sporting achievement, I am a little disappointed really to see the options that have been, the preferred options that have been put forward in this paper. Certainly Councillor Donnelly's amended proposal is an improvement on option 4. You know, we spoke earlier in the meeting about the tremendous sporting achievement in our district, and it's something that I don't think we should take for granted. The effort that our athletes and sports people put in to their individual sports and the success that they achieve is truly amazing. And you know, every year I try to get to the Young Achievers reception, which also honours sporting achievement. But there are so many people, young people particularly, who excel. And I know that Councillor McElduff has hosted very many receptions in recent weeks. And, you know, I found that those receptions were extremely well attended. And I can't imagine, unless we were to hold this you know, in the Oma Leisure Complex or the Lakeland Forum, it would be a huge event. Even carrying it out quarterly, there would be a lot of people there. And I think, you know, Chair, that it would lose its personal touch, because, you know, a sporting achievement is something that a lot of people are involved in, the athletes, the coaches, the management at schools, etc. I'm not sure if it would work, but certainly hosting one in Oma and one in Fermanagh would be a better option. But I appreciate the cost and the time involved for the chair. But actually, I think the way it's working at present is very good. And I pay tribute to Councillor McElduff for the time and effort that he has put into it, and the council staff for their excellent catering, which always goes down a treat. And finally, Chair, in terms of the workhouse, I will leave it to the Gaeilgeoirs to debate that one. I want to thank Kim and Catherine Scott for the tour of the workhouse last week. It was absolutely amazing. I was totally amazed and blown away by that project. And I think really it is a blueprint for further projects that this council can undertake. I thought it was truly amazing, very moving, and really it just brought home to me, Chair, the importance of conserving our history and having you know, a resource that young people in particular can visit and reflect on the trials and tribulations which our forebears you know, suffered in the past. It's right that we should remember those people and commemorate their lives. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Deehan. Councillor O'Reilly.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just want to make a few comments. I suppose the first, in case I forget, is that I'd like to ask John to forward me a copy of the item 2, the Ballinamore project. It's absolutely brilliant to see €193,797 being achieved there to work and to provide self-help to a lot of communities and to a lot of people. And I want to commend all of those that are involved in working in that project, no less than the First Fermanaghs in my own town here in Newton Butler, and all of the good work that has been undertaken by the various clubs around the council area. Indeed, the community associations as well. So I'd also like to second Tommy's proposal of the second and the fourth points here. Can I address the visit and the excellent opportunity to see around the refurbished workhouse and pay compliment to Kim and the team there that brought this on, and all of those that were involved from the start working this up, and to the enthusiasm of Catherine and Kate there on our visit to the workhouse. It is truly remarkable to see a building of such age being brought into the presence in a new lease of life, but recognizing and being able to interpret the former life that it had and the people that came through that door, and very poignant to be able to stand on the flagstones that so many poor people had to stand on to get food to live, and to hear the stories of many others that never even made it to the door of the workhouse. So, you know, it was an excellent visit last Thursday, and I just want to put that on record. As for the recognition events, Chair, I suppose having had the pleasure of being able to host many sporting achievements through my role as chair of the council, I too would agree with Josephine that there is a much more personal involvement and ability to engage with the individuals and to focus on their achievement when you're doing one achievement. Even when you have big teams in there, it's more difficult, but certainly to put lots of people together in a venue like a sports hall would, in my view, certainly lose that sense of being able to focus on that achievement in that evening or that day, whenever the event was held. So I would be of the view of the chairpersons being able to continue to provide that focused event, and to be able to invite them in. I think we have not to forget to be able to invite them into the town hall and to the Grange. And sometimes this is the only opportunity that those people will get to visit their local council building. And I think it's important that and that they can hear some of the history, if they wish, of the buildings and so forth there too. So there's many added benefits of those personal engagements with the chairpersons of the council chair. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly. And Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I don't know this maybe it's just me that I didn't have an opportunity to get to the workhouse, but I will make a visit to my to the spot, and it, as I said before, it bears significance to myself. My father was born on the 15th of June in 1941, and I think that the workhouse should symbolize really to our people the importance of the welfare state, which we're at risk of losing. Also the importance of the National Health Service, which we're also at risk of losing. There was no medicine for poor people. You know, you have to think of Harry Leslie Smith, who said about his sister dying, and he watched her die because the family couldn't afford the medicine to save her. And that's where we're going as a society. And that workhouse should remind us of where we have come from, and we should not go back into it. Of course, the workhouse is a particular place in Irish history. As we all know, the workhouse in Enniskillen is surrounded by countless hundreds, if not thousands or tens of thousands. I'm not sure of the number. I don't know how many are buried around it from the 1840s. And it is absolutely disgraceful, as far as I'm concerned, that someone translated the workhouse Chacnamach to Chacogber. It is doubly, well, first of all, where's the accountability? That's a classical P1 mistake. Yes, it's technically correct, but transliteral translation is the most elementary error in translation. I don't know who would think that that would be correct, and whether we would go to anyone and give them any amount of money to do such an incorrect translation of any language. I don't know any. I often get translation done for workers who don't speak English as well as and nobody would do such a thing in the translation. I think that's shocking. But it's compounded by the fact that there's a reason workhouses is Tratnamocht in Irish and the workhouse in English. And it comes from attitudes towards the poor, and those who called the workhouse Tratnamocht were the people, often predominantly Irish speaking, who were sent to these places, and it was a house for the poor. There's always a house, there's always the workhouse, as they're saying, is translated into English. But in the ruling elite who run the society called it workhouse because they thought that you could make poor people work. And then the first workhouse was called into existence was 1531. I was checking it up. It was 1631, and they said, we are going to enforce, Mayor of Abington, we have erected within our borough a workhouse to set poor people to work. That was their solution to the poverty, and it's a neoliberal formation, which is basically poor people have to work, and that way you don't give them charity. So I think this is a disgrace. I would like to hear some form of accountability of how such an rudimentary error was made and is now apparently being defended. I propose that we don't accept this. This is and that there is accountability. This is not acceptable as far as I'm concerned. It's mistranslation. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. And Councillor McAleer.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to welcome the additional funding for the community advice from Fermanagh and the Omagh Independent Advice Services. Myself and Councillor Michael Duff were up at the AGM for the Omagh Independent Advice Services not that long ago, and absolutely bears repeating the work that they do, and particularly the work that they're doing at the present time is invaluable, and any contribution that we can be making to them, we should be. So that's something that definitely has to be welcomed. I've listened with interest, I suppose, to the discussion around the recognition for the various sporting teams and sporting individuals, and having attended some of them in recent times, there's a notable difference when you get a number of teams in to collect an award at once, and when you have one team in or one individual in. And I do think it is losing something by bundling them in. I can appreciate why it has been proposed due to obviously the financial constraints and the time and the staffing that it takes to organise these things. But I do think it is something that is worthwhile. And as Councillor O'Reilly, I think it was mentioned, the idea of getting people into the public buildings, into the Grange and into the Town Hall in Enniskillen is another nice touch to make the council human to them and make it relatable to them. So it's disappointing, I suppose, to see any kind of move away from that. But again, hopefully it's something that can be revisited when times allow. Finally, just to come in and second Councillor O'Coffey's proposal there, as someone who has a bit of Irish in them, he's hit the nail on the head there. The translation there is a P1 translation. That's how I would determine it. It's a literal translation. I think it was Councillor Maguire said earlier. The Tratnamocht, the House of the Poor, is what workhouses are, and you can go up and down the country and you will see that is the translation and the recognised translation for workhouses. So I'm more than happy to second Councillor O'Coffey's proposal that we revisit that and we actually look to amend it, because I can't approve something that isn't accurate and isn't correct. And I do think there is an element of accountability has to be looked at here. I'm not sure if we went internal or external to get the translation, but it was obviously sought and was approved on it. It's not correct. So I'm happy enough to just second Councillor Coffey's proposal in relation to that.
Thank you. And Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, I want to thank the staff for the visit to the workhouse. Obviously, and also welcome the money for the Fermanagh Community Advice and the Omagh department. These groups are under extreme pressure at the moment, and any extra funding was obviously going to be welcomed. And I'll declare a bit of an interest there, as I represent the council on the board of Fermanagh Community Advice. the workhouse was a well worth visit. Those councillors that went to it, we learned an awful lot. It's an interesting thing to see the change is in society. It was only 10 years earlier that they abolished slavery, and then 100 years later, after the workhouse came to the fore, we had the National Health Service coming in. It shows you the changes on the quality of life. The people were seen as a burden on society, and that's what they were referred to as, a burden on society, and they were put in there to work or die, basically. And it was a sad reflection on humanity themselves, but obviously we've moved on to a different kinds of cruelty to other humans, but that's something to reflect on anybody that wants to take a visit to the workhouse. And as for the sporting bodies, I think we unfortunately have become victims of our own success. Every month now we're hearing of success, should it be wrestling, gymnastics, swimming, with Gaelic, soccer, and rugby, all coming to the fore, and that's creating a burden on our staff as well, having to trying to fit in events for these people, even individuals, runners, and all sorts of sports. So we're becoming victims of our own success, and it's to be welcomed. So thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor McElduff.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the wording of the Teach na Mocht, I agree with Councillor Maguire, O'Coffey and McAleer that Teach na Mocht is the better, the more accurate, the more dignified description, in history as to what purpose that building served. And I think it has been articulated very, very well. And it would be nice to see that remedied, because Teach na Mocht is definitely a better description. And secondly, in relation to the advice organisations, the independent advice networks that we have in both Enniskillen and Omagh, Community Advice for Mana and Omagh Independent Advice Services, and maybe declare an interest as a council representative, a board member or a director of OAIS, one of several. Just to say that we're very, very lucky to have these organisations, really lucky, because we as councillors couldn't presume to have expertise on every aspect of universal credit, employment law, but we have these organisations at our disposal, and we can freely give out their phone numbers and their contact details to our constituents, ratepayers, citizens, and they get a very good service, face-to-face meetings based on an appointment system. There's outreach to a number of villages, and they can hardly be faulted, I know at the monthly meeting, they talk about where their referrals come from, and many come from councillors, and they're a great protection for us, because it's a risk to give wrong advice to somebody, and they protect each and every one of us by being there. So if I was in High Street, Omagh, and somebody asked me a detailed question about universal credit, my answer is 028 82 24 32 52. Ask for Michael Ruddy or a member of his team. And the same goes for Enniskillen. I met the team there, and really, really impressive. So we spend money wisely as a council, as does DFC, when we empower them to do what they do. So those are just two comments. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. On WebEx, Councillor Deehan, you've already been in now on this item.
Well, just thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, Chair. Chair, I just wanted to thank Councillor O'Coffey for his comments, and to pay tribute to him for sharing what is a very personal family history with us as a committee. I did find the whole visit to the workhouse extremely moving, and Catherine Scott was very evocative in her description of the suffering of the residents there. But to have such a close family connection takes it to a different level altogether. So I just wanted to record my thanks to Councillor O'Coffey, and I agree 100% with him. What happened in the workhouse era was because of lack of appropriate healthcare and social support. We as a society need to value those and to do what we can to protect them going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair. And I would concur with Dr. Deehan's comments there. It was a very moving visit to the workhouse. But on another footnote to that visit, we were also taken around the upper floor of the workhouse where the workhouse is looking forward, where the incubation units are there for young entrepreneurs. I'd like to also thank Kate McGrath for her tour. It's a very exciting project supported by Fermanagh and Omagh District Council, and I know the calibre of people looking at it and giving their services in terms of mentoring and enthusiasm promises a very exciting future. So just to put that on record, that the public are also aware that that is also taking place in the workhouse. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. You just appointed clarity, Councillor. You were on Councillor Thompson.
Just very quickly, just to declare an interest as a member of the Management Committee of Omagh Independent Services, like Councillor McAuliffe and Councillor Garrity.
Perfect, thank you. Councillor Maguire, the same. Just
Chair, it's on the back of the proposal of Councillor O'Coffey, whereas I already have proposed the action as indicated, and I feel myself now compromised, obviously, with the proposal that Councillor O'Coffey has made. Could I retract my proposal of item 4, and could I suggest that it is put back for a month? Because I feel that this independent translator, if possible, could come forward with his synopsis or his informed judgment, because it's quite clear across the chamber with anyone with even a modicum of understanding of the Irish language that Seach na Mucht is the preferred term. I'd be inclined to concur with that. I was happy enough to leave it there to let some public discourse happen among the Gaelgary, as Councillor Deehan did intimate earlier. But the proposal of Councillor O'Coffey has sort of forced my hand. If we could put it back for a month, and maybe if it was brought back to us then with the independent translators, more fulsome opinion of why he chose Seach Umbra, because certainly I wouldn't have chosen it, similar to Councillor O'Coffey. So to avoid the dissension or the split or the necessity for a vote, I'm proposing that we put it back for a month, and we'll have some further discussion in the meantime, if that fits.
Okay.
Chair.
We'll just bring in Councillor Baird as the final speaker on this at this time. Councillor Baird.
Thanks very much, Chair. Very interesting discussion here on the proper terminology for the workhouse. And as someone has an interest in languages generally, Seach Umbra and Seach na Mucht, if I've got my pronunciations right. I don't know whether this is the forum, but could somebody explain to me why the small letter word na, which I think means, if that's again a pronunciation, means of. I was just wondering why in the language Seach Umbra, house of the work, and Seach na Mucht, house of the poor, why there's a na in there and not in the Seach Umbra. It's because I presume Umbra means of the work, and Mucht is of the poor. Maybe I'm being pedantic, and I don't. Maybe it's a private conversation with Tommy or Donal, who are Gaelgors. It's just I have an interest in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Now, and you could have a new attendee at your class now, but Councillor Maguire.
You anticipated my response right away there, Mark. It was a recommendation that he gets in contact with Fiona Crudden and arranges his place in the classes. Go among it. Happy to have the conversation anytime, Alex.
Yeah. No, it's too long for here, but no, I'll contact
Thank you, Alex, as well. John, we'll bring you in at this point. See where we're at.
Yeah.
Very quick, Councillor McAuliffe, then, just very quick.
I think Seach na Mucht contains the definite article and the genitive case.
There you are. John.
Chair, thank you. Chair, I think everything's agreed except for the fourth item in relation to Seach Umbra or Seach na Mucht. In relation to Councillor Maguire's suggestion that we defer it for 1 month, I don't honestly know what difference that will actually bring in relation to it. The independent translator has said from a literal translation it could be Seach Umbra or it could be Seach na Mucht. So I think, I think it's probably up to members. It will ultimately come down to members to decide, which one they would rather use, because I think the independent translator is very clear that it can be either or.
Okay. Well, I think members, we do have 3 of them recommendations agreed. That'll be 1, 2, and 3, and proposed and seconded, so we can take that as agreed. And we'll work now on the 4th one here. Councillor Maguire.
Carly, thanks again, Chair. So therefore, again, I withdraw my last proposal. And I think by default, then, I think we're back to Councillor Coffey's proposal.
Okay.
Which I think probably hold some support across the chamber.
We will go to Councillor O'Coffey's proposal, which was that would revert back, and that would be at the cost as outlined in the report. Is that right? So was there agreement for that, members? Or is there any dissent on that? Okay. That's it, members. Agreed. No more speakers. We will move to item 6.1. Are we on now? 6.1, to consider consultation response to draft ammonia strategy paper D. And that's over to Kim. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So, members, the draft ammonia strategy was released by DAERA for consultation for an 8-week period up until the 3rd of March. This paper is to agree the draft consultation response for submission. It should be noted that the consultation does not address the review of DAERA and NIEA's operational protocol on ammonia admissions and nitrogen deposition. This is felt to be a key omission in relation to the consultation, and failure to address this means that we will not be any further forward in terms of the delays around planning consultations. That will be addressed in a later call for evidence, which DAERA will produce. So that is not included in this consultation. The key issues in relation to the consultation set out that ammonia has adverse effects on nature and public health. The strategy advises that agriculture makes a significant contribution to our economy, but also produces 97% of ammonia emissions, and sets out that action is urgently required to support local farm businesses and rural communities while at the same time protecting the environment. It sets out that Northern Ireland has 394 sites of high nature conservation value, and almost 250 of these are sensitive to the impacts of ammonia and nitrogen, the vast majority of which are currently experiencing ammonia concentrations above critical levels and loads at which damage to plants may occur. There are 2 interim targets set within the strategy to 2030. That those include the reduction of total NI agricultural ammonia emissions by at least 30% from 2020 levels, and the reduction of ammonia at internationally designated sites by 40% or less than the critical levels and loads from 2020 levels. The long-term target is to reduce ammonia emissions to a point where critical loads are at a more sustainable and pragmatic place. There's a summary of 9 farm measures proposed in the strategy to deliver ammonia reduction, including changes to farming practices, including increased uptake of established and new technologies and optimum use of increasingly valuable nutrients and enhanced production efficiencies. There's a timeline included for action, and that includes the publication of the final strategy by June 2023, a commitment to a 2-year stock take of actions by December 2025. By December 2028, a report on the delivery of the strategy to 2028, and then to determine the optimal approach to 2030 to meet targets. To support the uptake of the programme of measures, DAERA will provide appropriate financial support for the implementation of ammonia reduction measures on farms, and that will be through the Green Growth Capital Investment Plan, which is subject to confirmation, and also through the relevant future agricultural policy programme measures. DAERA also aims to use knowledge transfer and education to support uptake of ammonia reduction measures. Council has prepared a draft response to the consultation attached at Appendix 1. Consultation sets out specific questions, and a draft response to each of the questions is provided. But alongside the response to the consultation questions, we have included a section on general comments. In the general comments, we've referred to
the Council's own strategies around climate change and sustainable development, which sets an ambitious target for a net zero district by 2042, which is 8 years in advance of the equivalent Northern Ireland target. Comments also note the issue around the call for evidence and notes that it's disappointing that this operational protocol is not included as part of this current strategy and consultation, and that will be a critical factor in the delivery of targets through the planning process. Our general comments also note the significance and importance of farming to the Fermanagh and Omagh district, which has the greatest number of farms and the greatest number of very small farm businesses compared to other districts. So it's clear that the Fermanagh and Omagh area will be impacted most by the introduction of this strategy, and these changes will also take place during a time of financial hardship. So the Council therefore calls for targeted and full financial compensation to ensure farm businesses are protected and sustainable in the long term. The general comments also refer to the fact that many of the designations within the Council area extend into the Republic of Ireland in terms of protected sites, and that there is no specific consideration of cross-boundary impacts on designated sites in the strategy, and that is also seen as an omission. So the recommendations are that the Council agrees the draft consultation response outlined in Appendix 1 for submission in relation to DAERA's draft ammonia strategy.
Thank you, Kim, to that and for the response before us. Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's a very long and detailed document, and a lot of what's in it is very good. There's a few questions I would like maybe something added to or taken away as such. Question 3. I think it will have a devastating effect on particularly farms in less favoured area, of which I think County Fermanagh has something like 92% of the land is less favoured area. Farmers in less favoured areas should not be scapegoated because of their location due to no fault of their own to the special designated areas. I think that needs to be pointed out. There's also a part in it where we say that an approximate and appropriate enforcement and monitoring. I'm not that fond of the enforcement. I've nothing against the enforcement, but if we're enforcing it just in these spatial areas around these special environmental areas, we are specifically targeting a specific group. So I would like to see that the enforcement word taken out, but I'll take guidance from other councillors. In question 7, bear with me a second. In question 7, I think that this will have serious financial implications on small family farms. What is in place to mitigate the financial burdens on these small family farms, and again, which are mostly in our council area? So again, less favoured areas are being specifically targeted, for the want of a better word. In question 16, I believe that it possibly should be removed and replaced with we have concerns about the specific elements of the strategy, particularly the proposal of spatially targeted areas around designated sites. DAERA's equality and disability screening document shows that designated special areas of conservation are mostly concentrated in land that is classified as less favoured areas, which is associated with a particular equality group, namely religion. DAERA says it is committed to achieving the programme for government outcomes of We Prosper through strong, competitive regionally balanced economy. Pursuing a geographically targeted policy to reduce ammonia will undermine that outcome. We believe that farming will not be sustainable and viable in these geographical areas, targeted areas, if the department pursues this policy that could potentially be discriminatory. Does the department no longer value small family farms that deliver food production along with environmental outcomes? Going on to question 19. Consideration should be given to the evidence that suggests that animals in confined spaces are more likely to contract bovine TB than other animal diseases. For example, what impacts will be on bovine TB rates if land is taken out of agricultural production in less favoured areas and livestock must be confined to livestock houses? That is the natural conclusion of where we're going with this. If farmers are not allowed to graze their land and that and want to continue to farm, they'll have to house their cattle 12 months of the year. Again, on item 19, DAERA must recognise and acknowledge the deep frustration that exists in our communities toward planners. This part maybe is what you were talking about earlier, that this doesn't take in this, but I'll read it anyway. Kim, DAERA must recognise that and acknowledge the deep frustration that exists in our communities towards planners, shared environmental services and NIEA. Farmers have complained that when they have implemented some of the recommendations outlined in various reports, it is not recognised by the planning system. This situation must be addressed as a matter of urgency by the draft ammonia action plan. Planners need to think outside the box in terms of finding ways and means to verify emission reductions on farms. This can be done through mechanisms that already exist, for example, record keeping by that verify diet.
Can you round up just, Seamus? Are you nearly there?
I'm almost there. Just on the funding, I believe that the funding should be to fund this shouldn't be took out of the grant that there is at the minute. I believe that it will have a detrimental effect, mostly again on less favoured area farmers and small farmers, which our area has the majority of. And so that's basically what I have so far, Kim. And
thank you, Seamus, for that. Okay, I have nobody else indicated at this stage. Please.
Okay, so a number of points there, and just to comment on a couple of those. The planning issues are not addressed, as Councillor Green has noted. They're not addressed in this consultation, so I don't think it's appropriate to bring the issues of planning into this consultation response, because it's not part of what the consultation is covering at this point in time. The other point relates to spatially targeted areas around specific designated sites. And the only point I would make there is we have a biodiversity plan in place, and those designated sites relate to areas of bogland or particular sites which we have identified in our own biodiversity action plan, which Council has agreed. And we have already committed to protection of those sites. So that's a matter which I believe members need to take into consideration in terms of how we respond.
Chair, could I just comment on that?
Just
Chair,
very quick
Chair.
comment, please.
Yeah, I'm not saying that we don't protect them. I'm saying that we don't target farms that, due to no fault of their own, are situated near to them. It should be a regionally based rather than spatially targeted areas.
Thank you, Councillor Green. We'll bring in Councillor Barton at this point, please.
Very much, and thank you very much, Kim, for your draft consultation response here. Now, coming from an agricultural background, there are a number of things which I would tend to disagree with. And the first one, I know before I came on council that it's already been passed by the council, but meeting of this in your general comments, meeting of the ambitious target of net zero by 2042 is going to have a huge impact on our farming and agricultural community. I do think they will have great difficulty. I do think they'll have great difficulty meeting them. And after all, we've got to recognise that in Fermanagh and Omagh District Council area, we have 5,216 farms. This here is one of the main sources of our economy, one of the main parts of our economy here in F&O. And I think we need to recognise that. Now, and of course, we're very dependent on the agricultural food industry also. So we need to be very careful there. Our economy, the farmers already are having huge difficulty meeting some of the cost of living rises, in particular to fertilizer, feedstuffs, etc. And if they have to, if they have to reduce their farming income, reduce their farming sizes to reach this net zero by 2042, I think this is leaving farming that where it's going to be impossible for farming to continue for many people to continue farming within the district. So I would actually be careful I would say, please be cautious on making those recommendations. You also spoke in question, you also referred to question 12, tree plantations around areas of housing. I think farmers at the moment are being encouraged to plant trees, but plant them in hedgerows and things like that. And I think it would be more suitable if there was increased planting in relation to hedgerows. And I do think there's a failure to recognise that at the moment there is a lot of research going on in relation to farm foods in trying to reduce the ammonia that comes about as a result of results of the food that they eat at the moment. And there's also further research going on in the machinery used to spread slurry and reduce ammonia from that at the moment. And one thing that is not recognised here, while it's referred to that we produce, agriculture is responsible for 97% of our current ammonia emissions, it is not recognised that within Northern Ireland itself, we produce over and above the amount of food that's needed to feed ourselves. We are sending a lot of our food to feed the population of Great Britain. So while our ammonia may seem high, don't forget we're feeding other parts of the community. And also, I would recommend, rather than take a decision on this here tonight, that we refer this here to the Agricultural Liaison Committee for them to have a more detailed look at the response.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to add this point, Kim?
Just to note that the consultation has to be submitted by the 3rd of March, so there isn't an Agricultural Liaison Group meeting in advance of that, and it also needs to go through Council. This would be the normal approach in terms of agreeing a consultation response. And I suppose, if we take it to the Agricultural Liaison Group, then there's an argument that we should also be taking it to the Climate Change and Sustainable Development Strategy Steering Group. And there isn't the time, I suppose, for those additional opportunities. Just to advise that there are 9 measures to reduce ammonia that are outlined in the strategy, and reducing farms and farm sizes isn't part of the approaches. The approaches include things like low emission livestock housing, using emerging technologies, using low emission slurry spreading equipment, longer grazing seasons, and a range which are outlined on page 62 of the document, and then also to advise that the reference to net zero by 2042 is already an agreed council position. It's agreed through the Climate Change and Sustainable Development Strategy, so it's not something that we can amend this evening through this document.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McAleer.
You, Chair. I suppose my reading of this is slightly different from the previous two speakers. The way I would take it is that the biggest contributors to ammonia production are the industrial factory farms. So rather than targeting the 4,335 small family farms, you're actually targeting the 881 large-scale farms in the district. To my mind, there are a number of flaws and a number of things that need strengthened in terms of this. It is good looking at the report that I think it's on page 22. It does make reference to ammonia production and human health, but I think there is still research to be done or links to be drawn there in terms of the actual effects of mixing ammonia and nitrous oxides on not just human health but animal health as well. It's recognized, I think, at this stage that there are carcinogenic compounds created. So I think prioritizing health is something that we really should be promoting and seeking to promote. And particularly when you're talking about particulate matter of 2.1, 2.5, I think the seriousness of this really needs to be taken on board. From reading of it, I think the measures discussed or introduced are primarily voluntary from what I can see as well. I think there is one specific one in terms of the amount of ammonia allowed in a bag of fertilizer, but the workaround there is that if you use 1.5 bags or 2 bags of fertilizer, you're making that up. So there are bits that can be strengthened within this. If we look at I think it's the 57 SACs across the north, what is the impact going to be in terms of protecting them and prioritizing them? Because there is an onus and a duty there under the Habitats Directive to restore sites to favourable status, and that's something that we're not seeing at the minute. It's referenced, and again, I give credit to the council response because this is something that is hugely important given our geographical location. The ammonia impact of production, transboundary production there. So that is something that needs to be established and needs to be worked on. I think one aspect, and I didn't think I seen it referenced there, was how the assessment is going to be evaluated against the Water Frameworks Directive. I do think that is something that we really need to be very mindful of. But and I would maybe make that as a proposal that that's something included, or that we include in our response, because obviously we know that the department itself is conflicted by its very nature, because it's on one hand the Department for the Environment, but it's also the Department for Agriculture. So there are inconsistencies there, and obviously that's why we need to progress the establishment of an independent environmental protection agency as a matter of urgency as well. But I'll leave my comments for there at the minute. Thank you, Chair.
And Councillor Willers.
Yep, thank you, Chair. I just have one comment just in regards to question 21 there, where it asks for any other comments or contributions. And I would like to see a great emphasis there on the all-island approach. As we know, ammonia emissions don't recognise borders, and agricultural emissions will obviously cross the borders. There's a lack of an all-island approach, I think, in this in general, and in the consultation. So I would like to see that adequate emphasis on that, if possible, Chair, if that could be added to question 21, just there on a greater all-island approach to address it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Erda Thompson's next.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thanks, Director Kim McLaughlin, for a report. Take on board a lot that's been said here this evening, particularly Councillor Green, Councillor Barton's comments. Particularly with Councillor Green referred to a religious phrase on there. This isn't down to religion, it's not down to party politics or party political outlook. This is going to affect a lot of farmers right across this district. So it is. So we do need to be careful, and we do need, if a farmer's going to be affected, they need properly compensated for this issue, because I know of farms in the West Tyrone DEA, and they're going to be basically finished. So they are, because of this, because they're close to an SEC, and that's just going to wipe out a family farm, and there's several of them in a particular route that I know very well, and I would have great concern with that, because it's the young farmers coming on in that family. So I just want to leave I'm not a farmer, but I'll leave my comments at that for now. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Rainey.
Well, thank you, Chair. I suppose thank you to Kim as well for bringing the report here and the recommendation. I'm a has-been farmer, Chairman, and from an early age, I have been encouraged by the department for intensification. And the intensification, whenever I started farming, was very minuscule in comparison to today, but that's what has led to this. And if we're referring to large farms as being large farm projects being intensive, I'm only thinking about our own farm. And that has come about by the result of people having no further interest in farming, and they've gone off and sought other types of employment. And I suppose what they get for an income for their farm is a supplement to their other salaries. Now, I would see this as a drastic turnaround to present day farming practices. And just coming on the road this evening, I heard the farming program and the trials that they're going to introduce over the next few years. A number of farms that have been identified, particularly maybe in County Down and such places, to try to cope with the rise in temperature and all that there. If there's a reduction in the nitrogen that one can apply to their farm to raise the volume of material to feed their animals over the winter months. I don't really know what's going to replace it. They are recommending this evening the introduction of red clover and perhaps lucerne as a crop, and using some white clover in it as well, so that it would the lay would last maybe a 10-year cycle. I think that there is going to be really hard going, and whether it produces the volume of material to get the farmer or his present stocking rate over the winter months, I see a huge reduction in all of that. And if you have one or two families and maybe their offspring trying to live off the income from, we'll call it the family farm, although there may be a number of other supporting farms, I can see a great change coming in the present system of farming. I considered supporting my colleague here, Councillor Rosemary, in referring this to the Agriculture Liaison Committee. And if that's not possible, to give a bit more time, that we would be able to make an in-depth response here. I'm not very satisfied with this here, taking this recommendation this evening without having an in-depth study of it. And certainly Councillor Green has given us a real in-depth into the less favoured area, and it extends further than County Fermanagh. It certainly does come into a lot of County Tyrone as well. And all of those things need to be investigated, Chairman.
Okay.
And I'm going to second Councillor Barton's and ask Kim, is there any possibility of bringing forward an urgent meeting of the liaison committee to look at this together?
Okay, well, we'll hold that just, and we'll go to Councillor Coyle now. Thank you. John Coyle. Sorry, John.
Thank you, Chair. From a farming background again myself, we are custodians of the land, and I believe that the ammonia strategy will be maybe detrimental to the farming industry. I thank the officers for the work that they have done. Obviously talks about planting trees, and Councillor Barton has said there that reintroducing of hedgerows, and rather than taking up large areas of agricultural land may be the way forward. We talk about efficiencies in animals. That question 11, I think it was. Council supports research and investigation into feed efficiency and genetic improvement, but we need CAFRE, we need the department to say to us what is the technology. We can't just pluck it out of the air and then just let farmers run on and say this is what it is. We need to know what it is. A lot of farmers don't know what their ammonia output is. You can get it on, AFOS online, but nobody comes out to talk to you about your slurry spreading or whatever. Longer grazing season. Well, I'm sorry, I'm in Belik, and we are wet, and unless that we get the cows a boat and keep them out of the water, it might be something, but it's not beneficial to us, and it will target small family farms again. We have to put in our cattle for it is just extreme weather conditions in the west. It's drier in the east, that's fine. It is totally acceptable. Councillor Withers had said there about the cross border. We have Pedigo Plateau where I live near, and it is a blanket bog. Obviously, it is majority of it is in Donegal. So obviously, what affects it from Ballintra, Ballyshannon, Donegal town, needs to be taken into consideration when it's Belik, Garrison, Kesh, Tully Hammond. This is all has to be taken on board, and that I think any other comments or contributions on this document, I think it needs to be put in question 21 that the council does not support the targeting of small family farms in the Fermanagh and Omagh district as a scapegoat for larger larger industries, that we fully, farmers will play their part, but we're not going to take the brunt and be blamed for, the causing of the huge amount of ammonia that's going into the atmosphere. There is large polluting companies that outside in Northern Ireland, on the island of Ireland, in the UK and further afield that needs to step up. We see that time and time again there is governments across the world that do not stand up to their climate crisis legislation, still allow deforestation. So they need to step up. We will play our part, but it needs to be, we're not going to be at a disadvantage to our livelihoods.
Okay, thank you, John. Will we take the speakers on Webcam before we come back to just for a round up? There's been a few members waiting on Webex quite a while. Councillor McLaughlin, is your hand up from before on this issue?
No, it's on this issue, Chair.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, John.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I mean, this is an interesting debate, and there's a lot of stuff coming forward. And perhaps I can suggest if we're unable to bring forward a special meeting of the Agriculture Liaison Committee, that we allow time for councillors to make submissions and maybe bring this back to the special council meeting next week and have it ratified at that. I know it has to go through a council meeting, so it would have to come back maybe next week. But I wonder, would that be possible? But that's something maybe for officers to think of while I'm speaking. Again, a lot of what has been said, Councillor Coyle has hit upon the main topic I was going to come. They don't take into account our Fermanagh weather and the amount of time that we have the lake, which is when Fermanagh's in the lake and when the lake's in Fermanagh. It's not taken into account. We can't extend our grazing season. In fact, with the climate change and temperature rise, we're probably losing. The cattle are spending more time in the houses, and then we're having to put slurry out. Again, Dara have a lot to answer for. There was an experimental farm up the road from me which put forward many good ideas when it wasn't functioning, whenever farmers were being encouraged to intensify their farming practices. That's all shut up and demolished. It's probably lying in ruins, most of the buildings, but we would really need something like that set up again, so as farmers can see what they can do to get best practice. And again, whilst Councillor Withers suggests in all Ireland, it's minuscule, the contribution we're making to the world. Councillor Coyle has touched upon this. It's minuscule what we're making, the contribution we're making to the world. We're probably some of the most efficient agricultural food producers in the world, and if we reduce ours, where is this food going to be produced? And again, what is the impact that's going to have on this policy throughout the world, not just in this small area of the world?
Okay, thank you, Councillor McLaughlin. Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just want to start out by saying that we really have got a problem with ammonia. Every single water body in Northern Ireland has ammonia, which is just nitrogen. So that's where eutrophication is coming from. The water quality is declining, and we're losing. That's why there's the problem we have around Enniskillen. It's probably partially related to the wastewater failure to invest in that system, but it's every water course, and that's precisely because of agricultural waste is flowing directly into water inappropriately. And primary to that is ammonia and ammonia-related compounds. So, it's undeniable there needs to be action on this. I have a huge amount of sympathy, I think, for the arguments being raised by those from an agricultural perspective and representing farmers, especially the small family farms. And I think it's well within the capacities of the DAERA to write a policy on ammonia, which overwhelmingly perhaps targets rural small farmers and ignores the main sources of ammonia in Northern Ireland. We do have more than our share, but as someone said, we produce more than our share of our agricultural outputs. The main contributors, as far as I can see, are dairy, beef, and poultry. As we all know, poultry 18%. But the thing about poultry is it's really concentrated in a number of sites. And when you have that degree of concentration, the output from that ammonia is going into, you know, it's the problem. And if you see, there's a map of Northern Ireland, if you look at the ammonia current baseline, you know, the West Fermanagh has 0 to 1 micrograms of ammonia per cubic meter, right? 0 to 1. And it stretches then more than 10 micrograms of ammonia per cubic meter, pretty much where you would expect, you know, if you had ammonia from poultry or dairy, intensive dairy. So the concentration of the problem here is around big corporations who have big outfits, who are creating vast amounts of ammonia outputs, and who are basically letting it go into where it shouldn't go, which is eventually into our water system or into the air, whichever it goes to. And DAERA is not talking about that. So we have crazy sort of suggestions, such as like what it's going to make a big difference covering over slurry pits, which yes, it will if they were big enough, but I'm sure that there's major lagoons that's not being treated elsewhere. I'm not at all confident that this is going to do what it needs to do. I'm very serious about it treating ammonia. I think some of the suggestions make a lot of sense to me. I imagine most farmers wouldn't have a problem covering up slurry stores and lagoons, establishing tree plantations to reduce mechanism to reduce ammonia. You know, these are relatively, you know, most farmers probably can do that, I would have thought. I do recognize the issue of spreading slurry onto areas of conservation. I think that should be banned. I don't see why we should be spreading slurry onto SACs and areas like that. But I definitely think that small farmers are not being listened to by Stormont or by DAERA, who represents and have regulatory capture by big pharma, big agriculture. And unfortunately, this report, I think, doesn't even deal with the main problem which we're facing as a society around ammonia. And I agree with those who say that this is part of phasing out agricultural production in Northern Ireland. And the impact of that will just be to displace it to somewhere else in the world where they will pollute, and then we'll get to feel great and good about ourselves. But the same level, if not worse, pollution will be going on somewhere else. So I would be supportive of those who wish for this to target better the main producers of ammonia in our society. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor O'Coffey. Councillor Sean Flower.
Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, that's it, Sean, yeah.
Thank you very much. I suppose my big problem is this: we were being given this great enemy factory farms, but I'm thinking an area, I find it very hard to define what a factory farm is, and because most of the farms are still family farms in the area. So we need more information where these factory farms are and what. Yes, it is a serious problem, but I think to maybe find out where these bad factory farms are. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. And Councillor Josephine Deehan.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in. Well, Chair, I want to thank Kim and her team for producing this report. And definitely, for me, this issue, there's a big quandary here. Yes, our council does have our climate change and sustainable development strategy, and our targets are very ambitious. Net zero emissions by 2042. So if we're to achieve those targets, then clearly change has to be implemented, and has to be implemented very speedily. There's no doubt that the world is sitting on a time bomb. We need to address climate change. And unless we do that, the future for our planet really looks grim. So we have a responsibility to do that, and I think we have a responsibility to stick by our climate change strategy. However, I agree with those members who say that these targets can be met without putting undue pressure on small farmers, particularly on those who farm in less favoured areas. And that represents a significant proportion of the farmers in our district council area. So we also have a responsibility towards them. I think that in the response, mention has been made about financial compensation for the new technologies, the new building designs, the new methods of grazing and so on. But, you know, this consultation has evoked enormous anxiety within our farming community. And it's coming at a very bad time, Chair, when farmers in particular face spiralling costs in terms of feedstuff and fertilizer and so on. And you know, this strategy adds another layer of stress to their working day. So certainly I have to recognize that. I want to support our farming community as best we can. So, you know, those are the competing interests, the climate versus the needs of our population. We are very proud, Chair, of the quality of produce that comes from our district council area, and there should be no compromise on quality. And if we can export food to other regions, well, that's all to the good, Chair. So I think that we need to include in our consultation response the fact that a lot of our farmers will be disproportionately disadvantaged in comparison to the amount of emissions that they generate. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you, Chair. Just commenting on the back of a few comments that has already been mentioned there about small family farms. You're looking at new buildings, and the majority of farms find it hard enough to pay for the bills they do have, never mind to invest in new infrastructure. In one of the recent tranches of the grants come out from DAERA, the criteria for building and everyone else would scare you off. There's a lot of red tape with it and a lot of extra expense when you're going there. And I know that if the department is going to fully finance this, they will go to town on what has to be done. I myself, in my younger days, you should say, I was at the job of putting up cattle houses and making them. And if I was to do that now, I would have to be a trained welder under EC regulation. So the cost of that is unreal. You're looking at big insurance and all on top of that for your own farm, never mind builders. So as the saying goes, new technology they're chatting about here, but I mean, like, it's not possible for a lot of farms, and especially smaller ones. And if there's nobody coming after anybody on a family farm, it's not going to happen. So it'll be just shut the door and move on. We're looking at the low emission spreading equipment. That has already been brought in for contractors from 2020. And most contractors will have it. Chances are it's going to be that instead of buying equipment, you will bring in the contractor to do it. And again, extra cost to the business as well. Like there was grants out there for all that, and it was 40%. And to gain points, you could actually reduce it to 32% of a grant. You know, so I mean, like, even getting the equipment was a problem. And I know within my own family, they ordered the equipment and it took them nearly 2 years to get it. You know, and like, you're looking at targets that's really not probably possible, to be honest with you. But again, I just listened to the factory farming and everyone else. But to be honest with you, that's the way it's going. Unless you're big in the enterprise, the smaller farm's not going to be able to survive of what's happening. You know, and that's the way I see it. I'm a contractor myself, and I know what it's like out there. I'd be around many a farm, especially summertime, and grass contracting, and I know what they're at and where they're at, and a lot of them's just saying it soon be enough is enough. The price isn't there for their stock, never mind anything else. And today I received a text message from Dale Farm to say that 5p's coming off the milk. So we're dropping now to 43 pence for a base price. So that's the way it is, you know, and all's coming down, yet everything else is still sitting up there. Fertilizer's still £800 odd for a ton, and you know, it's the same. Diesel's still the same, and the meal price is over £400 a ton now, maybe £450 a ton for your dairy nut. So, that's kind of the way it is. Chair, it's just not going to work for a lot of farmers. So it isn't.
Okay, thank you.
Alright, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Stevenson. Well, members, time is moving on now. We've spent a lot of time on this debate tonight. A very important one it is, though. We will just bring in Kim at this point. We can see where we're at. There's a few speakers looking in that have already been in now, but
Chair, we do have a number of proposals and contributions in terms of the development of the consultation response. I suppose in terms of bringing it to the agriculture liaison group, that group doesn't have any decision-making authority, and it needs to report to a meeting of the R&C committee to approve its recommendations. And I don't believe that there's an opportunity to do that before the closing date of 3rd of March. It has been suggested that if members wish to make further contributions, that an updated consultation response could maybe be tabled at one of the special council meetings next week. So if members were in favour of that as an option, then we could look at including it on one of the agendas. I'll have to consult with Democratic Services to identify which agenda would be most suitable, but we could work towards that if members were in favour.
well, that's been proposed and seconded. I suppose you'd put in everything that you've received tonight, Kim, and if members had anything else, they could forward that on. Councillor Green, very quick, just please.
Yeah, just a word of clarification to Councillor Thompson, to reassure him, I'm not making this about religion or that. It's just that in our law, equality groups are there, and one of them is a religious group, and one of them will be significantly more impacted by the very fact that the areas of special areas of conservation are mostly in the hills, where the stats show is mostly farmed by one specific group. It's just a fact. I'm not saying every group will be, but one specific group will be more impacted than any other group, and it's mostly hill farmers and from a particular religion. Now, this 30% from the other religion as well will be impacted. I just want that hill farmers, there's some mitigations put in there, in around that, because it's in the law. You cannot discriminate against one. And I have to say, Donal hit the nail on the head in his description of what is happening. And I'm telling you, everyone now, it's and Councillor McAleer, it is not big farms that's going to be hit with this. The vast majority of people that will be put out of business will be small hill family farms. That is a fact. If you cannot spread slurry within a kilometre of one of these special areas, that's farming gone. If you can't spread slurry within 50 metres of a hedge, imagine the fields, the fields in the mountain region, that's gone. So unless you're able to stock cattle for 12 months of the year indoors, that's where it's going, which would be a complete disaster for animal cruelty and everything else. So
okay, thank you, James. We must keep moving, members. And just a sentence, Councillor, as well, please. Councillor McAleer.
Yeah, Chair, just coming on a procedural point, I was going to second Councillor Withers' proposal, but if we're bringing back...
I think it's coming back, because I know you had a proposal as well, but I think that'll all come back in next week. So we had a proposed... Well, we had a proposal by Councillor Barton, seconded by Councillor Rainey, that it's brought to a special council. Well, can that be amended till a special council? Yes, perfect. Thank you for that, members, and please do forward on anything you have to Kim in due course before that meeting. Okay, the next item we're on to is 6.2, and that is the report of the Agriculture Liaison Group on the 12th of January.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is an update on the meeting held the 12th of January. There were a number of issues addressed, and there was a presentation by SES, and that presentation is included in the pack of papers. It was agreed a press release would be released on the ALG motion presented to the December council meeting around the challenges faced by the agricultural sector. That we submit corresponds to DAERA NIA to seek advice regarding standards applied to existing agricultural units in relation to requirements to meet current environmental standards regarding ammonia emissions. Corresponds is it be issued to the Department for Finance and DAERA, welcoming the support provided to the pig sector and inquiring as to why this wasn't provided to the wider agriculture industry. Corresponds issued to the Financial Conduct Authority in relation to concerns around insurance premium increases and to seek the views of the authority, and also to make arrangements for a Caffrey farm visit to consider solutions and mitigations in relation to reductions on farm ammonia emissions. So it's recommended that the actions arising from that January meeting as outlined are approved.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Just a proposer, please, members, for that. Councillor Robinson and Councillor John Coyle to second. Okay, thank you. Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair. And just one of the things, 9.1, that was raised, I would just like to highlight it again. Farmers in general have had massive insurance increases for their public liability, for their buildings, for everything, up 25, 30, 40, 50% at times. But that's the cost of material that has also went up, but the insurance companies are not raising the cost to replace the buildings. So they're raising the insurance costs, but we'll say if a building is worth 100,000 to replace, well, the material prices went way up. So at the minute it could cost 130 or 40,000 to replace, but the insurance companies are raising the premium, but not raising the cover on the buildings. And I think it's a major scandal. And I think we really do need to follow up the insurance companies on this. And I'm glad to see this being processed through tonight.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor McAleer.
Yeah, Chair, it's, I suppose an interesting presentation there from SES. I know this was something that a few of us had kind of been querying what exactly their role was, what input they had. But it looks like it was a very interesting presentation. I'm sure the members that were present can enlighten us further. But I note just two particular points that Malachy Kearney from SES has noted within the notes in the presentation. He's highlighted that the precautionary principle applies to council decision making in relation to the habitats regulation assessments, and that planning permission should not be granted until it is established that there is no unacceptable impact on the environment as a result of a proposal. And just in relation to the last item that we were discussing there, Mr. Kearney made reference to the DAERA NIA operational protocol in relation to ammonia levels and concerns regarding its robustness and ability to take account of cumulative impacts. So there were two things that really jumped out at me. I'm sure others have made their own notes or drawn their own conclusions from that. But yeah, a very interesting one and one to bear in mind going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yep, that's a good presentation. We'll go to, I think that's all agreed, proposed and seconded. We'll go to item 6.3 is to consider a report of the meeting of the broadband working group, which was on the 31st of January. Yep. Thank
you, Chair. Again, this is an update on the meeting held on the 31st of January. It dealt with minutes from the 29th of November and the, two sets of minutes which are attached at Appendix 1 and 2. Considered an update in relation to Project Stratum, and one action was agreed that the Council seeks further information from DFE in relation to the post-project evaluation of Project Stratum and whether information is available to confirm that connected properties are receiving the levels of service which were promoted. So it's recommended that the notes of the Broadband Working Group meetings held on 29th of November and 31st of January are noted, and that the action as outlined above is approved.
Thank you again, Kim. Okay, over for that, Councillor McAleer.
Chair, wasn't sure if you were going to go to Councillor O'Reilly first or not, just to propose it.
O'Reilly, Chair, yeah. Councillor O'Reilly, are you happy to propose? Councillor O'Reilly still on with us? No, maybe we having a couple.
Yeah, happy to propose, Chair. Just trying to get my
You're okay, thank you, Councillor O'Reilly and Councillor McAleer.
Yeah, Chair, I'm happy enough to second, and just apologies, I was late in, so I want to declare an interest on the next item 6.4 because the report notes collaboration with Southwest College. So just as an employee there, I'll declare an interest and I'll take part. Thank you.
Okay, that's all on that, members. Thank you. We'll move on to 6.4 now as a report on Go For It and UK Shared Prosperity Fund update. Thank you, Kim.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So two items in this paper, an update on arrangements for an extension to the business startup programme beyond the 31st of March 2023, and updates in respect of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. So under the UK Shared Prosperity Fund supporting local business theme, this is a successor to ESF and ERDF funds and represents £127 million of funding for Northern Ireland across 3 investment priorities, which are outlined at the top of page 2. So under the supporting local business theme, the DLUC has confirmed a financial allocation of £17 million over 2 years to support the delivery of an entrepreneurship support service. And that includes an allocation of £5 million to be allocated to business grants for eligible businesses. And that's the single largest financial allocation across the programme. That service will replace the Go For It programme and the range of programmes delivered by councils through ERDF funding, so the proposals are that DLUC will commission a lead council to manage the entrepreneurship service on behalf of all 11 councils. We are currently, the 11 council consortium is currently preparing to submit a council-led application for a 2-year programme, which is due to be submitted by the end of February. And that must include a signed match funding form from each council. So the 11 councils have been working together to develop the entrepreneurship service in preparation for mobilisation. There's a work plan in place covering a number of strands of activity, and that includes brand refresh, supporting architecture, which is really a management information system to manage all of the applicants and their journey through the service. There will be a portal and call handling, funder engagement, stakeholder engagement, management and governance of the service. And discussions are also underway to identify a lead council as well as sub-regional clusters to take the programme forward. And it's likely that a sub-regional cluster from Fermanagh and Omagh will work with Mid-Ulster and ABC councils, which are partners in the Mid-South West Growth Deal. So sub-regional clusters are likely to follow the Growth Deal structures. We've had a pre-market engagement event in advance of taking forward procurement to talk to suppliers, and the procurement strategy is now being finalised with a view to going to market in early March 2023, with the expectation that contract delivery of the new service will commence in September 2023. And in the 6-month period up until then, Council has already agreed that we will extend the business startup programme for that 6-month period. There is also an option to extend that for a further 6 months should we run into any procurement issues with the new entrepreneurship support service. Members should note that procurement will have to commence at risk because we won't have a letter of offer in place at this point in time, and is unlikely to be received before the 1st of April. But DLUC has confirmed that all spend from 1st of April will be eligible for funding. So that is an update on the new entrepreneurship support service. There was a previous report which provided members with clarity on the 4 steps and the 4 stages that are involved, and I can reissue that to any members if you wish further information. Alongside that, in terms of people, there's a people and skills theme under the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and applications have been opened on that priority with indicative funding available of up to £42 million. The funding period will run from 1st of April this year until the 31st of March 2025. This is focused on supporting people who are economically inactive to move towards and secure sustainable employment. We have been working in terms of an application with Southwest College, and this would really be to provide a successor to the Council's Aspire programme and also to provide a successor to Southwest College's SUS Plus and other economic and activity programmes. So Fermanagh and Omagh District Council, in collaboration with Southwest College, has submitted an application for delivery in the Fermanagh and Omagh area. And this would also include Fermanagh Rural Community Initiative, who worked with the Council on delivery of Aspire. It will enable a wide range of provision, including already established models and new ways to support economically inactive people. A wider programme partnership is included in the Southwest College-led application, which also extends into the Mid-Ulster area. And Fermanagh and Omagh District Council will lead delivery of the programme in the Fermanagh and Omagh District, and Southwest College will lead in the Mid-Ulster District. The application to the UK Shared Prosperity Fund was submitted on Thursday, 26th of January, and we hope to have an outcome prior to the 1st of April. So a number of recommendations. Firstly, that we agree to participate in the submission of a collaborative 11 council application to DLUC for the Entrepreneurship Support Service and support the signing of a match funding form on the basis of the financial commitment set out in section 3 of this report. And that is an overall cost for 23 to 24 in the region of 170 to 180,000, which includes the 6-month extension to the Go For It programme. And we have made provision in the economic development budget for this year to cover that match funding element. That we agree to proceed in associated procurement exercises on an at-risk basis. That authority is delegated to the Chief Executive to approve acceptance of a letter of offer if it's received in the period prior to the local government elections in May 2023. And also that the Council notes the submission of a joint application to the People and Skills Investment Theme with Southwest College, and subject to a successful outcome, approves delivery of a programme to support economically inactive people move towards and secure sustainable employment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Kim. Councillor Withers.
Carly, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I want to support the recommendation, so I'll propose them first of all, and welcome the progress made there on the successor for the Go For It programme. I know it's been very valuable to local businesses, it's been a great benefit to the local economy. So it's good to see progress in that area. And also welcome the collaboration with Southwest College there and the People and Skills Investment Theme there as well. Again, it's been very valuable to people seeking employment and open their skills. But I would like just to reiterate, I know we've raised before about the concerns that the shortfall that now exists because the British government hasn't replaced all of the EU funding that was available from before. I think that's around £90 million, which still appears to be the case. And I know we've written before to the Department for Level Up about that. And as usual, it's fallen on deaf ears, unfortunately, Chair. But yeah, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Chair. And if Councillor Withers has proposed the recommendations, I'm happy to second the recommendations as listed. This is a good news story as far as I'm concerned. And it's about collaboration and partnership working, which is the way forward for us all. Go For It and Aspire are two very successful schemes that we have been involved in all over these years. And I'm happy to support this and second the 4 recommendations as listed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Catherine Kelly.
Thanks, Chair, for letting me in, and Kim, thank you for the support. And it all sounds great, but it is important to point out that the Tories have reneged on their promise to match the European funding that we got through the European Social Fund and the European Regional Development Fund. There's a shortfall of about 90 million that's going to be lost to community groups across the north. And I'm pretty certain community groups within our own locale are going to be hurt by this. March 31st is the cliff edge that many of these groups are facing due to this huge funding cut. So, I would like to know, are the council aware of that shortfall? And has any work been done on understanding how the local community groups will be hurt by this shortfall. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Campbell, just at this point as well.
Just Chairman, a declaration of interest in relation to the college on that item. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Just on that query by Councillor Kelly.
Yes, Council's very aware of the change in funding landscape, and we have been working through a range of different funding streams to replace funds which are coming to an end. There are some opportunities, but likewise there are others. And members had asked for a report on the funding landscape, and I intend to bring that to the March meeting of the committee, which should provide more detail in relation to the closure of EU funds and the new opportunities that are available to us.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Kim. Okay, members, that's proposed and seconded and agreed. We'll move on to item 6.5 as to consider the report of the Director of Regeneration Planning. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Chair. So this report covers a number of items. There are details regarding the acceptance of letters of offer, notification of funding and letter of comfort, and that includes the notification of funding from the Levelling Up Fund of the £20 million towards the Lakeland project. The report also covers the draft performance improvement plan 23-24 and seeks approval for the plan to proceed to consultation. Report and consultation findings will be presented then to the June meeting of the R&C committee for approval. And there's also an appendix 2 to the report which sets out our approach to public consultation. Third item is in relation to our Visitor Experience Development Plan Delivery Partnership. And we aim to have an inaugural meeting in March 2023, which will also launch the VEDP. And members at the December meeting agreed to the establishment of the delivery partnership and to the draft terms of reference provided. The terms of reference identified that the council would be represented by 2 elected members drawn from its representation to the Community Planning Partnership, and have outlined those members at paragraph 2.3. Terms of reference further identifies that one of the council's elected members would be appointed to the position of chair of the partnership. It's anticipated there will only be one meeting of the partnership prior to the elections in May, and we will reconsider the appointment to those positions then at the annual general meeting in June. So it's really only for the purposes of one meeting. And then in relation to the Local Development Plan Steering Group, the council has previously agreed that all meetings of subcommittees, working groups and steering groups would be held virtually. However, the LDP steering group, as it moves towards its local policies plan, will be considering very detailed and confidential matters, and papers will be tabled which will may be difficult to, I suppose, PDF and host on our decision time portal in terms of their size and scale. So it is suggested that there would be merit in seeking provision to hold such meetings in person where the subject matter requires. So approval is sought for that. So the recommendations are to confirm acceptance of the letters of offer, to note the notification of funding and letter of comfort, to approve the council's draft performance improvement plan 23-24 for consultation, to appoint one elected member to the position of chair of the VEDP delivery partnership for the period to May 2023, appoint an additional elected member to represent the council on the VEDP delivery partnership for the period to May 2023, and also grant approval for meetings of the LDP steering group to be held in person as required.
Thank you again, Kim. Councillor Maguire.
Thank you, Morgan Carley. Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to propose the 6 recommendations there. And at item 4, I believe, could I propose Councillor Thomas O'Reilly for the position of chair for that VEDP meeting?
Okay, thank you. Thank you
You're
for
welcome,
that. Councillor Warrington.
I'd like to propose Councillor Armstrong to that committee as well, please. Thank you.
Happy to second the recommendations as well, Victor?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Are members happy with those 2 nominations and the recommendations agreed? Thank you. Okay. Agreed. We'll move on, members, to item 7. 7.1 is to note the report on environmental health for the quarter. Okay, just for noting. Just for noting, I think, members, so if we had a proposer for that, Councillor Maguire and Councillor Anne Marie Donnelly to second. Thank you. And item 8 on your agenda, these 3 parts of 8 are just for noting as well, members. 8.1 is to note report on the proposal of application notices, paper J. We could have a proposer to note, please. Councillor Crawford, thank you, and Councillor Stevenson to second. Okay, Councillor McAleer.
The chair was just coming on to note, but I think just given the size of the new turbines that are going up, it's something just to be extremely mindful of going forward as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. 8.2, members, is to note business case report, and that's paper K. Have we a proposer to note paper K, please? Councillor Anne Marie Donnelly and Councillor Errol Thompson to second. Thank you.
Chair.
Councillor O'Reilly, yes.
Yeah, just can I ask there just the addendum to Town Hall refurbishment at 46.8, just a little detail on that.
Yeah.
Yes, this relates to the refurbishment works which were undertaken in the town hall, and I suppose in relation to the nature of the building, in terms of its age and I suppose the heritage aspect, as contractors started work, more areas of damp, etc., were uncovered in relation to the building. So additional work was undertaken, and that has led to the increased cost to address those areas of damp.
That's grand, Chair. I thought it was maybe additional work.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I was going to come in on this as well. I'm grateful for Kim for providing that summary. Having said that, the point remains that we've now got we've been told that there's a chronic, squeeze on our finance, which there is to some extent, I'm sure. The issue is, however, why wasn't this picked up on the optimism bias? Because there is an inbuilt additional amount that is meant to be reflective of risks that have been identified a priori in an economic appraisal, business plan, whichever, to try and quantify precisely these sort of eventualities. And obviously, if that was included, we do set aside resources to these sort of capital expenditure projects where there is an optimism bias, so that if there is a run over such as this, that it would come out of the optimism bias. So I'm just wondering why it is that this is not catered for already within or is this above and beyond what was already estimated within the optimism bias? And if so, why is our optimism bias so inaccurate and does not reflect the risks that we have come upon? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor O'Coffey.
There would have been, yes, Chair, there would have been an element of optimism bias included in the original costs. Members will be aware that we have come through and those works were undertaken and commenced when we had a period of significant construction inflation and increased costs. So the additional costs would have, I suppose, been subject to those revised construction inflation elements in relation to the additional works that were addressed as part of the contract.
Okay, thank you, Kim. The next report, members, is 8.3, and it's to note the report of the Director of Regeneration and Planning for noting this report. If we could have a proposer and a seconder for noting, please. Councillor Stevenson, thank you, and a seconder, please. Councillor Warrington, thank you, members. I think that takes us to correspondence now, members. Councillor McAleer, you on
8.3 there, just again very briefly, Chair, and it's preaching to the converted across the chamber here, but I suppose the two significant findings from the report and the filming locations and supporting and promoting the film industry locally are the abundance of scenery and scenic areas that we do have for supporting that industry and accommodating film locally. And then obviously the constraints with the limited infrastructure, and again, as highlighted, the broadband and mobile phone coverage noted in there as well. I think the research identified that 37% of premises were unable to access broadband speeds above 10 megabits per second. So obviously work to be done there, and hopefully that will be somewhat balanced out by Project Stratum, but it's again some work that does need to be done just to prioritise and bring this area up to, I suppose, what be considered an attractive package for promoting as a film location, a film destination going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Stephen Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. Just to comment briefly, as I'm aware that much of this is fairly high level and long term in its nature, but I suppose looking at some of the feedback from the feasibility study, it does strike me that some of this, being optimistic is perhaps for the long term, but certainly I think looking at option 2, there are opportunities to be afforded if we were to kind of get the work and investment secured to pursue the option of a virtual production facility to support large-scale productions with VFX requirements, as that, I think, in conjunction with our landscape and geography as a district, I think actually plays well and touches on themes that are actually going to be very popular over the course of the next 10 years in television production, particularly around sci-fi and fantasy and historic drama, which I think Fermanagh Noma has big opportunities to play if we were to get that infrastructure in place. So I think that we should, in due course, make every opportunity to promote ourselves to NI Screen and relevant stakeholders in terms of the opportunities that there are in terms of our own district. But I think also we should be unafraid to ask questions. One thing that actually struck me over the course of the last year, members will be aware that one of the most popular shows that actually came out last year was House of the Dragon, a successor show to the Game of Thrones franchise, which obviously found great renown here in Northern Ireland. And it just strikes me that season 2, which is currently being filmed, a lot of the locations and the events being depicted in that season are going to be in places that previously would actually have been filmed in the Greater Belfast area. And as far as I'm aware, there's no intentions whatsoever for actually that filming to return to Northern Ireland. So, never mind Fermanagh Noma, but nowhere in Northern Ireland will actually get that benefit. And I think that there's a question to be asked, not just in terms of what work has been done to attract new filmmakers into the district, but actually what is being done to secure already established relationships where they previously existed. Because I know that that would be of enormous benefit were that work to actually continue here in Northern Ireland.
You, Councillor Barton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. If you would allow me a little latitude to speak in relation to the mobile phone infrastructure. I'm just, our mobile phones infrastructure in Fermanagh Noma seems to have grown very, very little over the past number of years. Yes, we now have more broadband. I'm aware of that, but we seem to be lagging behind the mobile. Anybody that travels along our roads and using a mobile phone, hands-free, of course, you will know you're dipping in and out of signal all the time. There's still certain towns within this Fermanagh Noma area or villages that get no mobile signal. And I'm wondering, has the council any plans really to invite some of these mobile phone providers to the council to get an update on what their plans are for progressing more infrastructure into the area?
Thank you, Councillor Barton. We'll bring in Councillor O'Coffey at this stage as well.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm going to speak on this issue of the film industry, and I don't know if whether it was myself or it was Councillor McElduff was the ones that was we certainly got slated in the Belfast newspapers for raising the possibility that Fermanagh Noma could actually succeed in attracting film companies here. And the idea was that we don't have the infrastructure and resources, and therefore we commissioned this study. Now, I've read this study, and I have to say it's very comprehensive. There's no doubt of that, but it is extremely myopic, and it reads like something that would have been written from someone based in Belfast. There's very little understanding of the local economy in our area. There's virtually no appreciation of the potential and the capacity of transboundary or cross-border or whatever you want to call it, links with other areas just across the horizon on either side. This is a very, very, introverted look, and it's almost telling us we can't do what we should be doing. I find a lot in it. There's a lot not considered that I would have liked to have seen. I believe that there's a huge investment and effort in border counties, just the other side of the border, to try and bring film into those areas. And what we really need to do, if we're going to succeed, it's a bit like Porter's diamonds for any economists that's out there. Used to be a big thing in Northern Ireland economic thinking. We need economies of scale. We need to have collaboration. We need to have hubs and connections with our economy and neighboring areas. And between us all, we get that weight and that heft that is needed to actually bring these companies in. But because we're being considered in isolation as a peripheral area of Northern Ireland, and this is very much a report that is, in that mindset. If you look at the sections on cross-border linkages, it's really inadequate. And I don't think that this does our area at all justice. The benefits would be for our community. This is a very high return. Productivity is very high in the film industry. The multiplier impact is very high. And you look at other parts of this island and these islands, and you will find rural areas succeeding in the film industry in a way that is only possible if you have ambition. So I am not satisfied with this report. I think it leaves the opportunities missed, which we need to seize upon. The film industry is something we could really do well in. We're hearing about how much we get losing jobs in agriculture and perhaps, unfortunately, in health services and so on. And we need to have hope and some ambition for our area. And I think film is one of the areas where we could really do well, and we're already doing well. We could do a lot more. And that's going to take a plan and a planned approach, a strategic approach. I don't think this gives it to us. I think we need to look again. And I'd like to propose that we go back and look at, in particular, how we can perhaps develop linkages with those areas across in Cavan, Monaghan, Sligo, Leitrim, wherever it is, or if there's anything in Mid-Ulster, not point in one direction, how we can work with our neighbours to try and succeed in this industry. And I do think ambition, we have to have ambition as a council. If we don't, who is?
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, Chair, thanks. Rosemary Barton there just hit on a subject that I find is an area around here, we have no mobile signal at all. It's basically an area outside Gorgon going by Ruski and even by Mansfield. There's no signal. It also happens all the way out to Glenelly, but Glenelly is probably in a different council area. But there's basically, nobody seems interested in even, making an attempt to put any sort of help there or infrastructure there. So that's my wee gripe out of the way. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, and Councillor O'Reilly.
Chair, thank you. I find myself agreeing with Donal on his comments on this report. While it's and thankfully we got it totally funded, while it's a very detailed report and certainly gives you a great insight to the overall picture of the facilities in Ireland, the money that can be made, the investments that are needed, all of those things, and the amount of stage space that is being created at this moment in time and into the future. Those people are not creating all of that space and spending all of that money without the very clear pathway that there is going to be that space and that facilities much needed into the future. And I too am of the belief that this is nearly wrote from a Belfast-centric perspective of protectionism, to say the very least. And I appreciate that there is major difficulties in attracting to Ireland opportunities and all of the rest, but it has proven to be able to be done. It has been proven to be done since the 50s that there is film and various types of film able to be attracted to this country. And I think when you look at the report, there is that actual gap to the west of the north of Ireland, that we don't have that space there. And I would agree with Donald that we should be looking at a partnership approach with our neighbouring councils to be able to see what economies of scale is able to produce out there, and look at what we might be able to put on the ground to at least attract. This report is really saying, go away and build up some expertise and come back to us in 25 years and we'll still tell you that you haven't really got the opportunity to do it. I think we just have to push a little bit harder at this door and see if we can. So I too would agree that we should, and I would ask that officers go back and look here and talk to the relevant people to sort of see if we can get some connections going in the other councils and have that conversation to see if we can get a partnership approach to this and see if we can get some investment into being able to attract the various types of movie business, film business, virtual reality business to this area.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Are you coming on the second, Councillor McAleer?
And just to pick up very briefly or very quickly on a point raised by the last speaker and by Councillor O'Coffey, that when you're talking about Belfast centric, the fact that the production feasibility study was 100% funded by Invest NI, maybe there's little wonder why that was the case, but happy enough to second that. All right.
Thank you. Okay, did we get the report proposed second, Kim? Just at this stage? I don't think we did, maybe, did we? Oh, we did. We did. Okay, so there was another proposal there, members, that this is further looked at again. That was made by Councillor O'Coffey, seconded by Councillor McAleer. Councillor Matockery, are you on this issue?
Yeah, just briefly. I mean, it's interesting. We certainly do have the scenic backdrops and stuff, and any employment coming to the county has got to be the district. In fact, has to be welcomed. But it seems quite strange. We're going to put the farmers out of business with the ammonia, and we're going to employ them in the biggest throwaway society that we know, which is the movie industry, to build massive sets and destroy them within a matter of weeks. And it's quite strange that we would put our farmers out of business to have them do that.
Okay, I think we're all agreed that that comes back anyway, members. All right, thank you. We'll go now to correspondence, members. Item 9.1 is to consider correspondence dated the 19th of January from Department of Business, Energy, Industrial Strategy regarding the adverse social, environmental and economic impacts of unconventional hydraulic fracking on Fermanagh District. Okay, this is for noting, members. This was requested, so we got a proposer to note. Councillor Thompson and a seconder, please. Councillor Robertson, thank you. Councillor McAleer.
Yes, Chair, again, I suppose a quick comment on the quality of the responses that we're getting, and particularly in relation to an issue as important as fracking. When the Minister in question here is writing back telling us that the body responsible for issuing licences is a body that no longer exists, the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Investment. Now, I know that was the body that was here when a former minister who resides within this district actually signed off on disruptive industries like fracking and gold mining to actually come over here. But that's actually been superseded now. So it shows the level of interest and the level of intent that the government over in Westminster has when dealing of issues in terms of protecting our environment and protecting our health here locally.
Thank you. And Councillor O'Coffey.
Have to hand it to Councillor McAleer. He got in there before me and spotted the DTI reference. It is quite shocking that they're not even up to speed on which department is even handling or the name of the department anymore. At least I would say that there is this commitment to a moratorium in Britain, but we do need to see that here in Northern Ireland. So I'm happy to second this, or if there's needs a second to note it. But this is going to be remaining a problem, and I think Councillor McLaughlin is just referenced there around farmers being put out of business because of concerns around ammonia. But the main source of methane, another noxious fume, is obviously runaway fumes from sites involved in fracking globally, and nobody seems to be talking about that at the moment because we're getting as much LNG as we can due to the geopolitical situation. So this is not an industry we want here in Northern Ireland, and it's not one we want in Fermanagh. I think we need to prize what we have in terms of our environment, because I think we can use it to our advantage, whether it's for tourism or for film. These are areas where we can certainly put a strong foot forward. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, that's proposed and seconded, members, for noting. Thank you. The next item is 9.2, is correspondence dated 31st of January from the head of Direct Communications, 10 Downing Street, regarding the impacts of rising costs on the agriculture industry. There was a letter sent, members. This is a response, so it's just for noting again. By proposer, Councillor Rainey, and seconder, Councillor Paul Stevens. All right, thank you, members. All agreed. 9.3 is correspondence dated the 3rd of February from the Northern Ireland Housing Executive regarding dereliction in Newton Butler. I think there's an event on the 20th of February, the correspondence dates, members, so just to note as well. Councillor Robinson and a seconder, please. Councillor Rainey, thank you. Councillor McAleer.
Yeah, again, just an observation about this one. I think it is referenced in the response, but the fact this letter from Council was dated the 17th of December 2021, and we're now getting correspondence about something that's planned for the 20th of February 2023. Again, it's just something worth noting and bearing in mind. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, and Councillor O'Reilly, this is your area, I know, so.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And it's even been longer than that when we first looked to try and get this event of latent demand testing to happen. So I welcome the fact that on Monday next we will have this event actually in the local community centre, and I'm obviously appealing to as many people as possible to attend that event, and if they can't, to contact the housing executive directly to show their interest in social housing. But I suppose I'd go back to where the fundamentals of this scheme, Chair, and that it takes so long from the actual event of the latent demand testing event to when people have an opportunity for housing, even if that comes out as a positive, that an awful lot of people's lives have moved on in that time and space. So, and I appreciate we did look at this again. We did write previously on this, and they said they had changed some elements of it, but there's still, in my opinion, a long way to go. Can I just ask, it says that the council is promoting this event, and can I just ask him, how is the council, besides having it here tonight, and in what other way are the council being able to help promote this event?
Kim.
Chair, I would need to check that with with our comms department in terms of whether any social media has been issued in relation to this. I know we're also have shared the information with our community planning partners as well for their information, but I'll come back to the councillor tomorrow in relation to wider communications.
Thank you.
I think, Chair, it's important that we have as much opportunity to let people in the wider district know about this as we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, that's passed as well. 9.4 to consider correspondence to the 6th of February regarding Irish Language Week. That's for information as well. Is that right, John, Kim? Yep. Just for noting, members, have I had Councillor Maguire and Councillor Stephen Donnelly? Thank you. Councillor McAleer.
Thank you, Chair. No, again, happy to support this, but I note that the letter is talking about, I suppose, funding and promoting Irish language events locally, and I'm aware that obviously, given the current financial state, that there are changes to our own provision. I've heard that the council language classes have actually increased in price and reduced in duration, those particular courses. There's also been an inquiry raised to me in relation to the departure of a member of staff and a role being advertised and then disappearing without any further information or detail or explanation. And I'm wondering, just in relation to our own language provision across the district, is that something that is currently under duress or under pressure? Or is that something that we are still, I suppose, committed to delivering and developing as we proceed as a council? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll bring in Councillor O'Coffey at this point, and then I'll come back to you, Joe. Councillor O'Coffey.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's just in this letter, there's a line there. It's Yarmidjort, the role ma freer Imanat Corler Amanakos Nahomi Dullet Jagwa Lesson Huffigi Awata Sakola August la Pobble Nagalaga Idachanta Hunar Awak Aaron Valakas Far Conchakta Nagalaga Kirkankin. So there's a recommendation in that and a request for this council to engage with the Irish language community in our area. So I'd like to propose that we consider how best that can be done as a body corporate. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'll take that proposal. Thank you. John, were you looking to come in there? Sure.
Yes, Chair, probably on both points. Councillor McAleer mentions the departure of a member of staff. Yes, there is a member of staff who is on temporary secondment to another organisation. In fact, to learn more about the Irish language in the European aspect. We certainly are not reducing the quality or the quantity of courses or classes that we undertake in relation to the Irish language. In relation to that, we have a permanent member of staff, but we also have a select list of tutors who actually are employed by the council in the absence of that member of staff in order to provide those and to promote the Irish language. And just in relation to Seachtain na Gaeilge, the ask from Conrad na Gaeilge here was to provide specific fund to local Irish language community groups. We have went out for to provide sponsorship to local community or to local Irish language groups, and we went out earlier on in this financial year, and we are providing 9 groups with £250 each in order for the promotion of the Irish language during Irish Language Week. In relation to the engagement with the Irish language activists, it is something that we do on a continual basis. We have very good engagement with Conrad na Gaeilge and with the local Irish language groups in our district. So, and indeed they feed into our Irish language action plan, so they do on a continuous basis.
Thank you, John. Okay, there was a proposal. Do we need to take that forward, or is that by Councillor O'Coffey?
That we engage. Well,
that we engage with that.
I suppose what I'm saying, Chair, is that we do actively engage at the moment.
Are you happy enough with that, Councillor O'Coffey?
No, Chair, I have to say the letter is from Conor na Gaeilge and they're looking specifically, I'll read it in English. We would ask you as Chief Executive Fermanagh District Council or Fermanagh District Council to engage with the relevant offices of the council and with the Irish-speaking community in your borough to look at the best way to promote Seachtain na Gaeilge this year. So there's actually a request in this letter for an engagement process that obviously they're not happy with the existing engagement. So it's just I'd like to see something taken forward in that. Thank you, Chair.
I will go to Councillor Maguire.
Thanks, Chair. But just for some clarity on that point, I'd be fully aware that consultation is ongoing with the Irish language community in my area. I'm also aware that is a standard letter that Conrad na Gaeilge issues to every council across the north and probably across the whole island of Ireland. Whereas Councillor Coffey has latched onto that particular point, I'm fairly content, and as Director John Boyle has indicated, that process is already ongoing in FODC, and indeed the funding application, I believe, was way back in October time, John, and all the Irish language groups that I'm aware of were fully aware of and have made the application. So that I would consider that engagement is fully taking place at this stage.
Thank you, Councillor Maguire. John, you happy enough with that? Okay. Okay, members, we'll move on to item 9.5. There's one item of correspondence not dealt with yet. John, can you deal with that, please?
Sure, it's correspondence from Fermanagh Lakeland Care or Community Care in relation to something which was brought forward at the December meeting in relation to the reduction in funding which was indicated from them for Balcoo Daycare Centre. You will note that the correspondence states that they wish to point out that there was not a reduction in further funding, rather the funding available did not meet the current cost to maintain the level of services, and they have indicated the impact that has had. Also, members, it's just of interest that they do outline not just the services that have reduced in Balcoo, but also daycare centre in Timor is reduced from 3 days per week down to 2 days. Balcoo and Dargonley is 2 days down to 1 day, and Garrison has been reduced from 2 days down to 1 day. So it just shows a reduction in service due to budgetary constraints.
So this is information we requested. Okay. Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. This is a genuinely concerning letter. I happened to run into and chatting to Pat recently. He facilitated a briefing by hospital campaigners and was good enough to do so. And we actually had a chat about this very issue, but this just confirms what's happening. And it's completely inhumane. We have primarily driven by austerity cuts, reductions in outreach to people, older people in rural areas, and it's a false economy, as is stated by the letter. Like it states here that the engagement with service users and their families provides a nutritious meal and activities which contributes in reducing the need for domiciliary care packages. So on the periphery as well as and reduces loneliness. Not that that is, unimportant as well, but even from a perspective of, making cost savings, what we're doing is cutting back on the sort of lower cost provision that is actually going to force more and more people to require domiciliary care packages, which we all know there's a major crisis in, and it's going to cost vast amounts more in terms of the public purse. So this is a false economy. It's inherently cruel. It is inherently anti-rural, and I would like to propose that we write to the Permanent Secretary for the Department of Health, I take it funds this, and to ask how he can stand over, or she can stand over, a decision which is impacting vulnerable elderly and rural dwellers in rural Fermanagh. We've had to fight for this service previously, and I don't think we as a council should just, accept this. This is completely unacceptable. This is a vital outreach, a lifeline to older people who have not much else. This is a way to get a social outlet and to raise their spirits and to improve their health. And if we do nothing else, we should be doing this as well as defending NHS services for our community. So I would like to propose that anyway. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Just to extend the meeting, members, could we have a proposer, Councillor Robinson and Councillor Crawford, a second? Thank you. Councillor Barton's next on this item.
Okay, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I just want to look at the last sentence on the first page. The shortage of social workers to refer clients is now impacting on the numbers attending. They don't sort of speak about, I know we didn't ask maybe the question, but this shortage of social workers, I think that's something that we have got to be concerned about and very concerned about. Many of us try to contact social workers with particularly when we're trying to help our constituents over various issues. And I know personally it's quite difficult to get in touch with social workers. It's a week or so or further before some of them get back to you. And I'm just wondering, what has been done? Could we ask what's been done to attract social workers, increase in social workers? They admit there's a shortage. So what's been done to increase the social workers in this area?
Thank you. And Councillor Deehan.
Thank you, Chair. I would like, Chair, to second Councillor O'Coffey's proposal. I think it's absolutely essential that there is prioritisation of these outreach services for elderly people. We know that social isolation plays a major role in depression in elderly people. It also leads to a reduction in their physical health, their mobility, and their cognitive abilities. I think the protection of vulnerable elderly people should be of the highest priority, and any reduction in service provision is totally unacceptable. Chair, I also agree with the comments of Councillor Barton. There is a big issue in terms of recruitment of social workers. In many fields, for example, in family intervention services and also services for the elderly. So perhaps this is something, Chair, I would suggest that we could put on the agenda for, if not for the next meeting of the Health and Social Care subcommittee, but a meeting in the future, because clearly this is having an impact on service delivery. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Debbie Coyle.
Thanks, Chair, for letting me in there. Well, I'm not going to repeat what's already been said. I agree with everything that's been said, and but I just, with these cutback in services, I'm just wondering where the trust stands on this, and why they can't come in and save some of these daycare centres. They are so important for families to keep their loved ones at home, because the alternative is keeping them in hospital. And there are people literally living in hospital that could be and should be at home if there were, well-paid carers and facilities and daycare centres for them to be able to stay at home. So very, very negative, especially in rural areas where this is needed so much. It's very, very disappointing. And so, yeah, so I just agree with the proposal in the first place. But I do think we need to contact the trust as well, because the whole thing ties up with people that are social admissions into the hospital. It's not just that, but it's part of that whole thing, why people can't cope or deal with their loved ones in their own homes. It's a lot wider than just a daycare centre opening for one day a week. It's much more important than that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I think just to clear up the noting of the report, could I have a proposer and seconder for that, please? Just to note the correspondence, Councillor Barton and Councillor Stevens a second. And then John, there was other proposals in there as well. Just go to John at this stage.
Yeah, Chair, there is one proposal outstanding from Councillor Barton in relation to what is to ask what has been done in relation to the shortage of social workers in our district.
Yep, and I think Councillor Coffey had a proposal about writing to.
Yes, that's already been seconded
Oh,
by
and
Councillor
that's been
Behan.
seconded. So we need a seconder for Councillor Barton's. Councillor Stevenson, okay. And all agreed with those members?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, any urgent relevant business? Councillor Robinson had an item, just the one item tonight, members. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. And asked this that the council would light up the Castle and Street Arts Centre for the European Victims' Day in the evening of the 11th of March in red.
Okay. Are we a seconder for that, members? Councillor Thompson. European Victims' Day, I don't know much about it now, members, but there you are. He's all agreed. Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move to confidential if we could have a... Oh, sorry, Kim, you have an item. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, Chair, just one additional item. We've had late notification of Women in Business Awards. I don't have anything in writing, but it's something that was raised verbally with us. There's a Women in Business Awards ceremony on the 2nd of March in the Crown Plaza in Belfast at 6 p.m. There is one business in the district which has been nominated, and we've been invited to send one attendee to the ceremony at no cost to the council.
So we need an attendee at a woman business. Is it a conference or a
ceremony?
Yeah. Did you talk about the chair maybe, Kim, or the chair of council, or would it be Councillor Barton?
I was just wondering what DEA it's from. That person is from.
Would be from the Mid-Tyrone area. So.
Yeah, can I come in, Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I believe it's from Carrickmore or thereabouts.
Well, have we a nominee members for that? Okay, Councillor Barton, or is there a seconder for that? Councillor Crawford, or are members happy with Councillor Barton attending? The date, you've got the details now, Kim? All right. Okay, thank you for that. Can we have a proposer to move to confidential, please? Councillor Thompson and Councillor John Coyle. Thank you. We'll just ask Director John Boyle to sum up the committee business.
Thank you, Chair. In confidential business, members considered the confidential minutes of the Regeneration and Community meeting of the 17th of January, and there were no matters arising.
Thank you. Proposer for the update, please. Just to note, Councillor Maguire and a seconder, Councillor Stephen Donnelly. Thank you, members, and good night and safe home. Thank you.